DC Tyrant. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 has been revised. It has been modified. This is just a leave of absence. Chapter 52 was a tough guy. The sea breeze blew, accompanied by the sound of large sunken black greasy barrels rolling on the ground and bumping. It was dead silent here, which was terrifying. I need a few dogs to do things for me. Badi's cold eyes swept over everyone and stopped at Mike. He showed his invulnerable body, and any shot was as powerful as a bullet, accurate, and could easily annihilate them with a dozen bullets in his hand. The butler saw that Badi just wanted to recruit Mike as his subordinate, and he was relieved. Just hoped he would not get angry and implicate them. Badi's physical strength was simply shocking to him. How could there be such a person in a body that even bullets could not penetrate? Mike's body was stiff and his breathing stagnated. Badi pointed a bullet at him, like a marble, but with the power of a bullet, and it would kill him. Mike had no doubt that, if he resisted strongly, Badi would kill him without mercy. Find a few dogs to help him do things. There are many people in this world. Similarly, Mike did not hesitate much in the whistling Gotham sea breeze. He just succumbed to the invulnerable monster in front of him. How great is it to be a runner and a dog? It's good enough to be alive. When shooting, Mike was determined to live or die. Now that no one died, he was relieved. Mike had walked out of the African War and the Triangle Devil area, so what was the difficulty in lowering his head? The next step was to talk about treatment. Mike thought about what kind of treatment he planned to strive for. It would be great if he could also have a body that bullets could not penetrate. Thinking of this, Mike's heart was burning. Just when he sorted out his words and wanted to speak. However, Mike saw Badi's head turn to the side, showing a satisfied look. He turned his stiff neck in confusion and turned to look at his men. Suddenly, he was choked by a breath of air in his throat. His face turned purple, and he really wanted to spit out blood. He saw that several of his men knelt on the ground, silently put down their guns on the ground, and looked like asking for forgiveness. The guy closest to him winked and whispered, "Mike, kneel down quickly, or you might die." Several others nodded in agreement, nodding desperately. "Mike, why are you so confused at this time? Kneel down quickly, or someone will die. At most, we will escape after this scene, but we can't die here anyway." Mike, this strong Russian man, couldn't help but want to spit out a mouthful of blood. "I'll kill your mother." Just when I was about to talk about future treatment, you all fucking kneel down for me. A bunch of bitches. You know how to betray me at this time. Fuck, you actually kneeled before me. As the saying goes, a soldier is a bad soldier, and a general is a bad general. The men who can be selected by Mike have some style. When you can show off your power, hold your head high, and don't fall behind others. When you can fight for life and death, then fight. When there is a glimmer of hope, put down your dignity and backbone first. Mike was so angry that his chest kept rising and falling, and his face flushed. These useless guys. Badi was very satisfied. He rarely met such a sensible person, and he rarely knelt on the ground and expressed his submission when threatened, especially in contemporary society, where no one would think that they were inferior to anyone else. In fact, people are very different in comparison, but they just don't want to admit it. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, 2 hands, and 2 feet. Others can be presidents, while you can only move bricks. What's the difference? It's in all aspects. So Badi likes people who can recognize themselves. If you should kneel, you should kneel. If you are stubborn, I will send you to death, so that you don't get in my way. So Badi can also recognize himself, know his own weight, the general trend of the world's development, some people, and some things. So, this world is his own. Badi's eyes looked back at Mike again, which made Mike feel nervous. Badi's ruthless and indifferent eyes seemed to say that there were already a few dogs, which was enough, and it didn't matter if there was one less. Mike tried to keep calm. His face was angry, and his serious expression was majestic. He snorted coldly, "I, Mike, have experienced everything in my life. From Africa to Bermuda, From Thailand to Myanmar, I founded the Warbear mercenary team, fought hundreds of battles, big and small, and never died. Now, you want me to be a dog under your feet. Mike's body was strong and his head was high. His words were sonorous and his will was unyielding. He was simply a tough guy who never surrendered on the battlefield. When he faced the bloody and miserable death, his will to never surrender seemed to be burning. The sea breeze was howling, as if it was seeing Mike off tragically. When the men next to him heard what he said, their faces suddenly changed. They looked at their boss in disbelief, and they actually had such a tough heart. The butler and Mario on the other side also had admiration in their eyes. What a tough guy. Badi also admired those who were not afraid of death, so he was ruthless. If that's the case, Badi said calmly. His fingers began to tighten, and the bullet was ready to go off. If that's the case, then I'll be your dog. With a bang, Mike's strong body suddenly lowered, and his knees suddenly knelt on the ground, making a sound. His chest was proud and high, his face was determined, and even his lumbar spine was very straight when he knelt down, which was completely unlike his subordinates, who were so soft. After all, he had some boss style. His subordinates' faces returned to normal. This is indeed their boss. Fortunately, the butler and Mario's faces twitched subtly. Mike's kneeling caught them off guard and made their admiration in their hearts collapse. You said this scene. You are such a strong man, with such a sonorous tone. It would be great if you died, which makes people admire you. When you knelt down, there was no admiration. Badi's fingers trembled, and this kneeling caught him off guard, and he almost bounced the bullet from his fingertips. Even he thought Mike was going to die generously and unwilling to surrender. Who knew that he would turn a corner and kneel louder than anyone else, holding his head high, as if he had done something proud, which made people feel strange. He looked at Mike deeply, which made Mike shudder. He couldn't help but shiver and said with a stiff neck, I just knelt a little late. You can't kill me. Badi twitched his mouth and threw the bullets in his hand to the ground, which was considered to be the end of this dog and his men. The bullets fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Everyone realized that Badi caught more than a dozen yellow bullets with his hands out of thin air. They couldn't help but feel cold in their hearts and no longer had any problem with Mike kneeling on the ground. Take my money and follow me. Badi took a step and walked towards Gotham. Chapter 53 Pamela Riley. Gotham. The sun penetrated and scattered from the clouds, reflecting the Gothic buildings, and the air was slightly rippling with a desolate cool breeze. Gotham is not always cloudy, there is always some sunshine that penetrates, but it is relatively rare. The Carmine Hotel has an unusually remarkable feature, the Gothic architecture, which well reflects the characteristics of Gotham. At the same time, this can also be regarded as one of the safest places in Gotham. After all, even the local gangs in Gotham would not want to mess with an old-fashioned Mayfair family. This is the property of the Falcone family. After conquering Mike and others last night, Falcone's butler took the opportunity to arrange for Badi and others to stay here, and after waiting for a good rest, Falcone's patriarch will have dinner and chat with Badi tonight. Obviously seeing Badi's power, he wants to reconquer Badi, or establish some good relationships, or catch Badi for a search. Who knows? 8:30 in the morning. Pamela Riley yawned slightly as she entered the dressing room through the back door of the Carmine Hotel. Pamela Riley was a girl with fiery red hair and a gorgeous appearance. When she entered the dressing room to change her clothes, Anne, her college friend and colleague who worked here with her, came in excitedly to change into her work uniform. Hey, Pamela, I heard something very strange happened yesterday, and nudged Pamela Riley's arm with her shoulder, looking very excited and interested in communicating with her friend. Really? Pamela Riley responded indifferently, gathering her fiery red hair and putting it up. In Anne's world, there are only a few things that interest her. Handsome guy plus rich, handsome guy plus rich plus a cool car, handsome guy plus rich plus a cool car plus handsome guys. That she is extremely envious of hooking up with various bitches. So every conversation always revolves around handsome guys. Did you know that a man stayed here last night? He was followed by 8 burly men, and he almost had a fight with the security guard, but of course he didn't. I heard that the man was very handsome, even better looking than a movie star. Jennifer's heart jumped when she saw him. This slut even wanted to offer herself to him, but in the end, haha, the handsome guy told her to get out. Haha, I laughed to death. Jennifer kept complaining about this guy, saying that he was having a gay relationship with 8 big gay men. She was going to send him custom-made clothes later, and it would be better if I was assigned to deliver them. How can a handsome guy be considered a handsome guy if he has not been tested by me, Annie? Annie looked like an info, and she started laughing again while talking. She talked a lot, and at the end, she showed an excited and eager expression, wanting to see which handsome guy rejected Jennifer, the socialite. Pamela Riley nodded. As expected, Annie looked like an info again today. Pamela Riley was confused and ignored. Compared to men, she prefers plant vines, fresh green smell of flowers. After Pamela Riley spontaneously watered and trimmed the plants in the hotel, her first job was to deliver clothes to the guests in the VIP room. Last night, a special tailor came to tailor clothes for the guests. White British retro Martin boots, white socks, white trousers, white underwear, white shirt, white jazz hat and a white windbreaker that was long to the soles of the feet. The edges of the front buttons of the windbreaker were a little gold, which looked extremely luxurious and noble. All white. Pamela Riley was puzzled on the spot. Is there anyone who wears clothes like this? She felt that a green dress was better than white. She couldn't understand why the underwear was all white. What Pamela Riley was going to deliver was the handsome guy who came to stay with 8 big men last night, as and said. After putting all the clothes away and breakfast on the cart, Pamela Riley stepped on the soft carpet, entered the elevator, went up to the 3rd floor, and quickly arrived at VIP room number 7. Knock knock knock. Pamela Riley tapped the door with her fingers a few times. Just as she was about to say something in a routine formula, a magnetic voice attracted her attention. Come in. The voice from the room made Pamela Riley's ears slightly comfortable. The voice is quite nice, she murmured in a low voice, and she had a good impression of the voice. The voice was firm, magnetic, and had a male domineering tone. It was undoubtedly the voice of a tyrannical man. She opened the door and saw a scene that she would never forget in her life. The small balcony in the room was open, and the dark red classical curtains were drawn on both sides. The sun shone directly in, shining on Badi's tall and majestic body. As the cells absorbed the sun's energy, Badi's skin produced a slight halo, and the sunlight shone on the tiny dust particles dancing. All of this seemed to set off the person in front of him, as if he was glowing, emitting a dazzling brilliance like a god descending. Pamela Riley was stunned, as if she had seen a god, and couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. Badi turned slightly, looked at the dazed Pamela Riley, and said lightly, "Close the door, I don't like being looked at casually." Pamela Riley's face flushed slightly, and after a little embarrassment, she apologized and glanced at Badi a few more times, and her ears suddenly felt hot. Badi's angular face was unusually masculine and beautiful under the sunlight, which made her heart beat. This angle, perfect. She secretly praised him in her heart, blushed, lowered her head, pushed the cart into the door, and closed the door. However, Badi stared at the badge on her chest, a little stunned. Pamela Riley. Poison ivy? Did I meet such a thug on my first day in Gotham? He recalled the various abilities of poison ivy. Her body was injected with plant toxins, and she survived the disaster. All her blood turned into chlorophyll, which was immune to all poisons. All poisons, viruses, bacteria, and fungi could not harm her. She gained the ability to control plants and secrete hormones to control others. Even Superman and Batman would be controlled by her if they were not careful. She once had a record of controlling Superman and Batman in battle. This is simply a general. It completely meets the template of the men Badi wants. Pamela Riley. Badi turned around. The sun shone on his back, making him look particularly tall and slender, with a very beautiful body outline and knife marks on his muscle lines, which undoubtedly showed the charm of a most sunny man. Pamela Riley's breathing stagnated, and her eyes widened. She had never seen a male body with such beauty and strength. He asked Pamela Riley, "How old are you?" Pamela Riley replied in a panic, 18 years old. Badi pondered. No wonder there was nothing wrong with her body, and she hadn't turned into poison ivy yet. Badi obviously didn't know what Pamela Riley was thinking. He was just thinking about how to use her to achieve the greatest value. In order to confirm whether she was the future Poison Ivy, Badi asked again, "Do you love plants?" Pamela Riley was stunned. Obviously she didn't expect this man to know her so well, and answered stutteringly, "Yes, yes, how did you know?" Badi nodded and answered casually, "Because I also like to bask in the sun like plants." Then he continued to ask most of Pamela Riley's situation, and only then did he know that she was just a freshman working in this hotel to support her plant research. Knowing that Pamela Riley had not yet turned into Poison Ivy, Buddy's thoughts on her became more active, and he might as well win her over first. Serve me. HM. Chapter 54, Death. Pamela Riley's face was slightly red. She was taken out by Buddy under the pretext of lacking a secretary, and then went directly to an avant-garde clothing store, where each piece of clothing was enough to cover her living expenses for several months at school. She was asked to wear this extremely gorgeous and dazzling red evening dress, and let her hair down, and her whole body exuded red, passion, and heat. But Buddy was dressed in white, pure as white light, shining into people's hearts. His eyes were not lustful, but full of joy of appreciating beautiful things. Beautiful, beautiful. Pamela Riley smiled seductively and spun in a circle in joy. She felt that Buddy, wearing a white formal suit and a white windbreaker that reached the back of his heels, had a kind of inner charm. The scar on his face, coupled with the clean and gentle white clothes, exuded a radiance that was beautiful and charming. Although she was not very experienced at her age, she could see that Buddy was not an ordinary person. Batty smiled back, watching the beauty's ripples, red like a candle flame. He was like a white moth. Moths don't fly into the flame, but the flame burns them. Pamela Riley turned around and took Batty's arm. Batty smiled and said, "Today's tour of Gotham, with you by my side, I have gained a lot." Pamela Riley heard Batty's words and happily agreed, "I will lead the way, wherever you want to go in Gotham." However, she also felt a little strange in the place Batty was going to. First, they went to the Gotham Police Department, where they met Gordon. Batty was also looking for a man named Edward Nigma, but he was not in the police station, so she and Batty continued to walk in the city. The two seemed to become closer and closer every time they passed a section of the road. This man took care of his mood every step he took, and deliberately avoided trampling on the flowers and plants on the road, obviously taking care of his mood very much. Pamela Riley said, "Are you like this usually?" "No, it's only like this when you are by my side," Batty replied. Pamela Riley looked at Buddy with more satisfaction. After going to Gotham Amusement Park, they rode the Ferris wheel and looked at Gotham from the sky. They passed by the Iceberg restaurant, but did not plan to eat in, because the environment was not that good. They walked past the circus. Then they passed by Wayne Building, the building with 12 monsters guarding Gotham. Buddy entered it, and learned that Bruce's parents were not dead yet. After passing Gotham University, Buddy met Jonathan Crane under the guidance of Pamela Riley, and then met Jason Wood, the botanist most respected by Pamela Riley. Buddy looked at Pamela Riley with a bit of amusement. The last stop, which Pamela Riley did not expect, was a large swamp outside Gotham City. She saw Buddy frowning, as if searching for something, and scanning the swamp. "What's wrong here?" Pamela Riley frowned and covered her mouth with her hands. The rotten stench of the swamp was unbearable for ordinary people. Buddy withdrew his gaze from the swamp. Nothing. But he was a little confused. Not here? Or not there? Since he couldn't find it, Buddy ignored it. "There are still a few hours. We can go shopping again." Buddy smiled. Suddenly, Buddy looked up in Gotham, in the direction of the Carmine Hotel. Carmine Hotel, VIP room 8. 8 strong men were sitting in the room, surrounding the coffee table, looking a little small and funny. "Mike, we observed him for a whole night, and we didn't get anything," one of them said. "We bought this batch of goods from Thailand to get the US dollars, not to give them up and become a dog of an inexplicable person. But he can block bullets and is invulnerable to swords and guns. I don't care what he can block. He is not here now. As long as we leave Gotham, we can continue to enjoy the world." Kneeling down in front of him and begging for mercy as to save my life. "I don't want to be a dog forever. Mike, what do you think?" Mike's expression was solemn. This Russian man was unprecedentedly stern. He said solemnly, I want this kind of power. This kind of power that even bullets cannot penetrate deeply attracted Mike's heart. This kind of power cannot be bought with any amount of money. Now there is an opportunity in front of them, that is, to be a dog of Badi and wait for the reward. Mike can see that Badi is obviously a person who wants to do big things. He just happens to be short of people, so he can't let go of this opportunity. Well, let's break up now. I'll get back my US dollars for the 7% I raised by joining the group to buy powder, and we'll leave Gotham later. A strong man opened the black box next to him, counted out his US dollars, and put them into his pocket. Even if Badi was good at fighting and had high defense, he didn't intend to be his dog forever. The rest of the people looked at each other and took back their own money one after another. They were used to being free and undisciplined, so how could they be willing to be a dog of someone, especially when this guy took the money from them? If it weren't for the fact that bullets couldn't hit that guy, they would have killed him long ago. Mike was shaking with anger and slammed the table with a deafening sound. He said angrily, don't you know that he let us hold the money because he is not afraid that we will run away? If you run like this, you will most likely die. Mike, you don't have to scare us. You know our ways to escape. No matter which way it is, if we leave now and leave Gotham, he can't catch us. Mike, when we knelt down to beg for mercy, weren't we doing it to be able to escape at this moment? Mike, since you don't want to leave, then I'll leave first. Goodbye. One after another, the 7 strong men left with their own money to enjoy the world. After enjoying these US dollars, they would continue to take on some murders and arson to make some money, and so on, free and easy. Mike's face was terribly gloomy. He always believed in himself and had no intention of escaping. These 7 people were dead. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 I Want Your Future, Ghost. Gotham. In the evening, the clouds were shrouded again, with a deep hum and slight arcs of thunder. The storm was about to come, and the clouds covered the dead night. Beside the road of Gotham University, the desolate evening breeze gently blew the dead leaves on the ground. A tall and slender figure in white was walking, and next to him, the flame of a red evening dress leaning on his arm was dancing, blowing in the bleak wind, like a dark color of a scroll. Badi. Pamela Astley arrived at the university dormitory. Today is the happiest day of Pamela Astley's life. At the same time, it is also the most reluctant moment. Is it really okay? I want to stay with you for a while and watch a movie. Zorro. Pamela Astley raised her head and looked at Badi with reluctant hope in her eyes. She thought that meeting Badi was the greatest happiness in her life, and every aspect of this man was firmly attracting her. Gentle, considerate, mature, steady, handsome, willing to gently avoid the green and beautiful plants for her mood, taking care of her heart, every inch, just like a prince charming in a fairy tale, falling in love with her, a Cinderella, making her intoxicated. No need. Badi chuckled. Pamela Riley's face was full of disappointment, and her eyes were dim. Why? I'm not pretty enough. Study hard and work hard on the plants you like. Badi's words made this enthusiastic face burst into tears and filled with sorrow. However, the next moment, Badi's words made her heart surge with fiery warmth. I don't need instant stimulation. I want your future. Becoming poison ivy in the future is the time when Pamela Riley is most valuable. How could Badi lose a general for love because of a small loss? Of course, what Badi needs is not her, but poison ivy. You don't need to work at the Carmine Hotel anymore. I'll pay for the rest of your tuition and living expenses. You just need to concentrate on studying what you like. Badi smiled. He only needed poison ivy, not Pamela Riley, who was infatuated with him. Pamela Riley was a little surprised and blinked her watery eyes and asked, "Is this a sponsor?" Badi pinched her chin and smiled. "Whatever you think. I want your future. Go back to the dormitory, study hard, study what you like, and come to help me in the future." Pamela Riley nodded, biting her lower lip. Really didn't want to separate. "Where will I find you in the future?" Metropolis. Soon the whole metropolis will know me, and my name will be heard everywhere. Badi said. Pamela Riley put down her hands, looked back every few steps, and looked at the white figure standing upright in the dark night with reluctance. You look sexy in red. I like it. I also know you like green, so I bought a green evening dress. It should be delivered to your dormitory. Badi said, looking at Pamela Riley's back. Pamela Riley couldn't hold back her feelings, so she turned around and ran towards Badi, bumping into Badi's strong chest. Without any regrets about parting, she said firmly, I will go to the Met after I finish college. Badi was very satisfied and said meaningfully, no matter what you become, I will wait for you. Become poison ivy. Pamela Riley turned around and left, walking very resolutely and firmly. Badi watched Pamela Riley into the dormitory and turned around. When he turned around, his gentle and calm face suddenly became cold and murderous. He walked out of Gotham University, and his white figure was particularly conspicuous in the dark night, like a ghost suddenly appearing out of Gotham University, in the distance. Boom. He stepped on the ground with his white Martin boots, and instantly stepped out a huge net-like pit. In the huge pit, the white windbreaker fluttered slightly behind him. The dust and the dead leaves nearby were blown away by the airwaves. The street lights flickered, leaving only a white figure, slender, white, clean, and majestic. The next moment, he disappeared from the spot, using the momentum to rise, and flew 40 meters, as high as 10 floors. The white windbreaker fluttered behind him, looking chic and awe-inspiring. The bleak wind blew on Badi's face. He kept rising and falling in the dark night, flying in the city. His footsteps did not fall to the ground, but kept flying on the roofs of the houses, stepping on the corners of the houses. The night was getting darker, and there were often flashes of lightning in the clouds, as if it was going to rain, but there was no rain, only the bleak wind blowing. Badi's white windbreaker kept rising and falling, and kept flying over Gotham. Boom. Another step, a corner of the roof was crushed, but it did not damage the stability of the overall foundation of the house. The people in the house were having a banquet, drinking red wine, and chatting happily. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from above their heads, and the place where they stood suddenly felt unstable. The ground vibrated slightly, and a large piece of the roof suddenly collapsed, revealing the roof made of steel bars and cement. Dust fell on their heads, making them eat a lot of dust. Everyone in the house started to quarrel and complain. Suddenly, someone who was holding on to his body by the window screamed, "What is that?" A white figure rose and fell in the dark sky, leaping dozens of meters high, and flew away and disappeared in front of them. Oh my god. What is this? Is it a person? Is it a ghost? It's a ghost. A white ghost. Ghost. Some people were so scared that they trembled all over and were terrified. Tonight, many people saw white ghosts, and the news spread more and more, and was listed as a supernatural event. And Badi finally flew to a warehouse in a backward industrial area, fell from the air, stepped out of the ground, and blew away the dust. In the cracked pit on the ground, stood his slender white figure, standing tall in the darkness like a jade pillar-top temple. Badi looked at the closed door of the warehouse with a cold expression, stepped out of the cracked pit, and his windbreaker fluttered slightly behind him. Chapter 56 Premonition. Gotham University. When Badi flew over the Gotham buildings, a Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit also started. This Silver Spirit is a standard Rolls-Royce saloon car. Even the Queen of England uses it as a car. It is known as the king of cars in the world's top 5 famous saloon cars. In this era, this Silver Spirit can be said to be the most high-end and prestigious car. The British royal family, Parliament, and the Prime Ministers of Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg and other European countries all use it as an executive car. The Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit passed through the streets of Gotham skillfully, passed through several wide streets, and then turned to the door of the Carmine Hotel, and parked the car in the exclusive parking room. A middle-aged butler wearing white gloves and a neat suit stepped out. This was the butler of the Falconet family at Gotham Harbor that day. The butler had fine beads of sweat on his forehead and shock in his eyes. Recalling Badi's inhuman strength, he felt his hands and feet trembling as soon as he stepped on the cracked pit on the ground and flew dozens of meters high. He even forgot that the master had asked him to pick him up and could only see Badi flying away. The butler went straight to the 7th floor of the hotel. The Carmine Hotel is not known for its grandeur and splendor, but is designed in the style of a Victorian villa, elegant and comfortable, with a backyard, garden, lawn, etc. The environment is quite beautiful, and it is also an extremely safe area here, but the price is not cheap. On the 7th floor, the environment is huge, the full lobby, the decoration is eclectic, the colors are bright and clear, the crystal lamps, lace curtains, colorful wallpapers, exquisite porcelain and delicate oil paintings visually give people an absolute gorgeous and split choice. Being in it, you can feel the perfect combination of decorative beauty and natural beauty anytime and anywhere. In front of an oil painting called Gotham Back, the contemporary owner of Falcone, Carmine Falcone, who is also the underworld godfather of most of Gotham, turned around and put his hands behind his back. He was not tall, a little fat and strong, and looked more like a businessman than a gangster, but he did not have any mercenary air. His face had a dignified and majestic look, and his eyebrows were full of ambition. Seeing that only the butler came in, he frowned slightly, whereas the butler wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief, knowing that he had lost his composure, came to Carmine's side, bent down, and whispered in his ear. It was not that he did not go to pick up Badi, but after Badi left Gotham University, he flew over the rooftops of Gotham in the dark night. He himself looked frightened, and he could not catch up, so he had to come back first. When Carmine heard what the butler said, he clenched his fists behind his back, and his eyes flashed with shock. He doubted and said, "Really?" But after he said these 2 words, he was silent again. What the butler said was of course true, and there was no reason to lie to him. This is what made it even more terrifying. Someone was not afraid of bullets, using his body to resist bullets, and the ground cracked into a big pit when he stepped on it, and he jumped dozens of meters high, and flew over more than 10 stories. Is this still a human? Carmine's dignified face became serious. When he was about to unify the entire Gotham underworld, such a terrifying person appeared. From the beginning of his recovery of Mike and his men, he looked like a fierce dragon that could not cross the river, which really made Carmine a little worried. If he was short of money, it would be easy. Carmine could recover him with money. If he was short of women, there were plenty of women for him to choose from. Of course, Carmine was most afraid that someone would fight for the control of Gotham. In that case, he would kill this man no matter if he poisoned him, launched missiles, or hired the most powerful killer. He didn't want to cause trouble. Carmine was silent and thoughtful. Fortunately, he had been showing goodwill to Badi, whether it was inviting him to live in the Carmine Hotel, asking famous designers to design clothes for him, or helping him privately intercept the 7 mercenaries who wanted to escape. He thought it was enough to show goodwill to Badi. Tonight's dinner was also to test Badi's intentions. He hoped that this superhuman would know how to choose. Either become his subordinate, or be killed by him in the future. Ring, ring, ring. At this time, the ringing of a bell suddenly broke Carmine's meditation. In the warehouse of the backward industrial zone, 7 big men were tied up in the middle of the field, sitting on the ground, angrily scolding the Falcone family for being worthless. They arrested them after the transaction and had no credibility. Around them, there were more than a dozen strong men wearing black suits with pistols, M16 automatic rifles, AK-47 automatic rifles. Anton smoked a cigar, squinted his eyes, sat on the crossbar of an abandoned machine, and sneered. "We, the Falcone family, still look down on you. We keep you here for the boss's guests to deal with. Whether you live or die depends on your master." These words made the 7 big men sweat profusely. It felt that they were arrested just because they were used by the Falcone family to show goodwill. Boom! Suddenly, a loud noise came from the closed warehouse door. The ground trembled, the ceiling lights swayed, and the yellow light refracted everywhere. Anton's face became serious, and he stood up, took the Colt M1911 pistol from his lap, and looked at the door. There was a faint sound of footsteps approaching from a distance, becoming clearer and clearer. The footsteps stopped. Suddenly, bang! Just as Anton and the gun-wielding men in black were feeling strange, a loud explosion blew their ears, and suddenly a strong wind blew violently towards them. The closed warehouse door was torn apart like a rag, and dust blew towards Anton and others with a strong wind, making them squint their eyes and lower their heads to cover their eyes with their hands to block the dust. Through the dust, a white figure stood in the gap between his fingertips, with his windbreaker fluttering at his heels. Who is it? The sound of machine guns pointed at the door, and the men in suits faced the door, as if they were facing a great enemy. The diffuse dust quickly dissipated, revealing a clear figure. Stop. Anton looked at the white figure, which was exactly the same as the description, and immediately stopped his men's actions. The 7 tied up strong men stared with cold sweat, and suddenly one of them shouted, "Boss, help me." The remaining shameless men shouted, "Help, boss. The Falcone family wants to harm you. They captured us to threaten you. I will never let them succeed. The boss will dominate Gotham in no time." The 7 tied up strong men were righteous and awe-inspiring, and they composed a moving song in their cry for help. For the sake of the boss's foundation, they were accidentally caught, and because of their loyalty, they saved us. It can be said that there is no backbone, dignity, or bottom line. Badi stepped into the warehouse and turned a deaf ear to the cry for help. They caught these dogs and tried to show their goodwill to me before they even saw Carmine Falcone. Badi said calmly, stopping his steps. He could guess what Carmine was thinking. At the moment, when he was about to unify the underworld forces in Gotham, the appearance of such a powerful thug would make everyone salivate or be afraid of him. As expected, if he wanted to develop in Gotham, he would be hit hard by Carmine and there would be no possibility of cooperation. Anton threw the cigar on the ground, stomped it out with his foot, and said, "The boss just wants to make friends with you." Badi nodded slightly, looked at Anton with a faint smile, and turned his eyes to the 7 tied up strong men. "Give me 7 bullets, so that I don't get my clothes dirty," Badi said. The 7 men were immediately terrified and screamed for mercy, with snot and tears flowing out. It was unknown whether it was pretentious or true. Anton was a little confused. He had never seen the scene at Gotham Harbor, so he didn't know what Badi wanted the bullets for, nor did he understand why these 7 cowards were shouting and begging for mercy. He only knew that the boss was optimistic about Badi, or was on good terms with him. Without hesitation, he took out the bullets from his pistol, 7 of them, and threw them to Badi. Badi took the bullets with one hand, and then let go. The 7 bullets made a sound of breaking through the air. Puff puff puff. Puff puff puff, puff. The whole warehouse was silent for a moment, and there was a blood hole on the foreheads of the 7 people. Their expressions before death remained in fear. The atmosphere in the warehouse suddenly changed strangely, and it was chilling. Anton felt cold sweat rising up his spine, watching the white figure turn away, after throwing the bullets, disappearing in the darkness like a ghost. With trembling hands, he picked up the mobile phone and called Carmine. This made Carmine feel a little more worried. How did he know the location of the 7 people? Badi left the warehouse and walked alone, thinking his base would not be in Gotham, but in Metropolis. Or he could be more high profile. He pondered and felt that he was still too low profile. As he walked along, he had already started to plan what he should do when he arrived in Metropolis, what to do first, and what to do next. Extract the Codex of Life, repair genetic defects, solve the weak magic resistance, solve the restraint of kryptonite, and create doomsday cells. His mind flashed through the problems he needed to solve one by one. Well, compared to conquering the Earth, it might be more difficult to solve one's own problems. He thought and gradually came to the city. The movie theater just ended, and a large number of people were pouring out. Badi took a quick look and saw that the poster was a movie starring Pamela Reali. Zorro. Badi didn't like to rush to the avenue with a group of people. The chattering discussion would make people frown. He chose a cleaner alley and walked in. 200 meters ahead, there was also a family who had just watched Zorro. The father, mother, and child were happily discussing the movie theater and walking in the slightly dim and quiet alley. Chapter 57 Insider. The clouds in the sky were dark and rumbling, and thunder flashed from time to time. In the underground alley, the atmosphere was quiet and strange. The family was still talking about the plot of Zorro with laughter, and made an appointment for the next family gathering. Badi was walking behind them, not following them, nor walking with them, but walking their own way. For the time being, it was the same way. until a homeless man in shabby clothes appeared and shot the father of the family with a pistol. Badi knew what kind of scene he was facing. Bruce, run. Run quickly. The mother protected the child behind her back, and there was still unbelievable fear in her expression. Bang, the homeless man shot again. This could be shown in slow motion, or with a sad atmosphere. The mother fell down little by little, and died with her eyes open. The child named Bruce lay on the bodies of his father and mother and cried loudly, tears streaming down his face. After killing 2 people, the homeless man was a little panicked, and ran over their bodies without stopping. He ran over Badi with a panicked look. The two passed by each other. Panic and indifference passed by. Bruce Wayne. Badi's eyes flickered, and his right thumb rubbed the palm of his left hand, appearing very calm. Even if 2 people died, it had nothing to do with him. He was just passing by. Badi was calm and composed, and did not stop. In this alley, there were only the painful sounds of crying and Badi's footsteps. He had never thought of subduing Batman for his own use, or from the perspective of perception. Badi hated Batman. He hated the fact that he was caught in Gotham and put in Arkham and kept playing a crime game to show off his heroic identity. How difficult is it to kill someone? Will it make you degenerate? Are you afraid of becoming a character like the Joker? You are thinking too much. For this earth with 7 billion people, you are not worth mentioning at all, and only you take yourself seriously. He glanced at Bruce's father and mother without any feelings. Dad, Mom, please, help me. Bruce was on the verge of despair and in great pain. Suddenly, he saw Badi passing by. Helpless and not knowing what to do, he was crying and sobbing in pain. He subconsciously asked for help from Badi, an adult. Badi took his eyes away from the bodies of Bruce's parents and glanced at him coldly. No help, Badi said coldly, and walked past without stopping. He didn't walk away as fast as a snake or scorpion, nor did he deliberately watch the show with a playful look. He was just an ordinary person passing by here. You begged me for help. I won't help. It's that simple. This simplicity is simply chilling to the bottom of your heart. Human indifference is nothing more than this. But at the same time, why should I help? Bruce was experiencing the most desperate and painful moment of his life. His parents were killed in front of him. The voices and faces of passers-by passing by indifferently. At his age, he really didn't know what to do. Helpless and in pain, he could only hold his parents' bodies tightly and cry loudly. For a 10-year-old child, this was extremely desperate. The cries and shouts of pain and despair echoed in the alley. Badi walked to the end of the alley, and when he was about to turn around, he suddenly stopped. He turned his head to a narrow alley deep in the darkness. With his supervision turned on, he saw a black figure in the darkness. He was wearing a tight black suit, his whole body was sealed, and he wore sealed glasses, like a magnifier worn on the eyes when repairing a clock. The lenses were dark, and shaped like an owl. He wore sharp knives and daggers on his chest and waist, and his gloves were sharp and dark. The whole person was like an owl assassin and killer hunting in the night. Court of Owls? Badi asked in confusion. This outfit did look a bit like the claws of the Court of Owls. If it was the Court of Owls, then Badi did know the cause of death of Bruce's parents. No wonder the claws of the Court of Owls were here. The guy whose identity was revealed by Badi suddenly felt nervous, and his breath fluctuated violently. Subconsciously, he was like an owl staring at its prey, with a murderous aura ready to strike. Badi actually knew his identity, so the only way to complete this night's mission was to kill Badi and make him disappear. He had thought about why the man in white had such good eyesight in the dark that he, who specialized in assassination, was discovered. But he had to put everything aside and get rid of the insider, which was what he should do. He subconsciously accumulated strength like a leopard, ready to attack and kill. Claws. The Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is a mysterious organization in the nursery rhymes of Gotham City, composed of many famous and prestigious families with a long history in Gotham City. This organization, compared to the underworld boss like Falcone, is even more deeply rooted in every inch of Gotham. Since Gotham appeared on this land more than 400 years ago, the nursery rhymes about the Court of Owls have never disappeared. Beware of the Court of Owls, which is always monitoring your travel. He peeks at Gotham City from the dark, hiding in the attic between the low walls. He is with you in the house, and he is also with you in the bed. Never mention his name, or the claws will find your head. The current head of the Wayne family, Bruce's parents, just died at the hands of the Court of Owls. Obviously, the Court of Owls wants to continue to hide, but they must kill the head of the Wayne family. Not only did they bribe a homeless man, but they also sent out the claws to make sure that the head of the Wayne family must die. The claws are the weapons of the Court of Owls, lurking in the dark corners. Once the homeless man fails to kill the head of the Wayne family, he will take action. The plan was successful. There was one more passerby who passed by and coldly refused to help. Comforting the bright side of the city, the Wayne family was simply a mockery of the brightness of this Gotham City. Of course, everything is over, and it is a foregone conclusion. Perhaps it would have been better for this claw to leave early. If he had not subconsciously released murderous intent like a cheetah, he would not have ended up in a meat paste. When the claw exuded murderous intent, Badi stepped on the ground, and the ground cracked into pits in a network. A huge sonic boom sounded at the end of Crime Alley. Boom. The hem of his white windbreaker was raised high, and the whole person was like a cannonball, blasting out a circle of white fog sound barrier, and his body passed through the white fog sound barrier, and punched the claw. The black figure of the claw was more violent than a cannonball. When Badi punched him, a huge sonic boom exploded, blowing him away, and crashing into the wall more than 10 meters behind him, knocking out a pit in front of him, and all the bricks and stones sank into it. Claw had no way to react at all. His sternum collapsed under the blow. A crushing force spread from his chest to his whole body. His bones cracked and shattered bit by bit. His spine was crushed and extended to his head. His head, unable to support itself, drooped down. His internal organs were blasted by the impact, and his brain was shaken and mixed. He was rotten into a pool of meat paste, and hung in the wall pit. The loud sound of boom instantly shook the alley, shaking the dust and mud in the alley. Thunder exploded in the flat ground, and exploded in Gotham. Gotham was in panic. Even Bruce, who was 100 meters away, felt his ears buzzing, and his head was like paste. He was too sad and fainted in front of his parents' bodies. Badi's face was indifferent, and he patted his fist lightly. Before the claw attacked him, Badi punched him into a meat paste. Not everyone is qualified to provoke him. Chapter 58 Decision. Carmine Hotel, 7th floor. The Victorian-style lobby is colorful and clearly divided, luxurious and artistic. On the dining table, there are top-quality caviar from Caviar House and Prunia in the UK, black truffles from Italy, top-quality French foie gras, and world-class steaks from the Pullman family. A regular-sized steak alone is worth $3,600, which is about 20,000 yuan. In addition, there are all kinds of top-quality seafood, lobsters, cheese pasta, etc. This meal is extremely luxurious, costing more than $50,000. In this era, there are not many people who can enjoy this, and they will not be so extravagant. The aroma of the food spreads, making people salivate. At the dining table, sat Badi and Carmine. The two were not far away, just a few steps away. Behind them, there was a butler with a white napkin hanging in his hand and a bottle of wine ready to serve at any time. The only flaw was that Mike, a Russian bear man, knelt beside him with a wronged look on his face. This elegant banquet venue was destroyed. Cheers. Badi raised his glass slightly and clinked it with Carmine's, making a crisp sound of glass. For friendship. Carmine smiled and raised his glass high. Badi smiled and drank the brandy in the goblet. It was the first time he met the head of the Falcone family, the godfather of most of the underworld in Gotham. On the surface, he looked good, courageous, ambitious, and capable. Just knowing his own strength, not afraid of him to death, and daring to invite him to dinner, made Badi like him immediately. Badi tasted the steak foie gras. The elegant aroma continued, lingering on his teeth and cheeks. He nodded slightly, very satisfied. Delicious food always makes people happy. The two chatted for a while, nothing more than various tests of Badi's past, which Badi described lightly. After eating a round of food, Badi held the knife and fork in both hands, and leaned his arms lightly on the table. He seemed very relaxed, with his lumbar spine straight, calm and generous, as if he was not ashamed of his table manners. Carmine glanced at Badi, and observed his words and actions. He was a little puzzled. Badi's confidence, calmness, elegance, and ease made him wonder where this unconventional nobleman came from. But Badi had a kind of aura, which was majestic and covered everything. With a faint smile, he controlled the whole scene, making people feel that they were always inferior to him. This feeling made Carmine feel uncomfortable physically and mentally, and he felt that his aura was overwhelmed. Here, Badi's calmness and magnanimity made him feel terrified. The moment he saw Badi, he knew that it was impossible to recruit Badi as a subordinate, and he might even be an enemy. Carmine, I'll deal with some things first, and I have something to talk to you about, Badi said. Carmine made a gesture to invite him in, and at the same time, sent his butler away. Mike. Badi gently wiped the sauce stains from the corners of his mouth with a napkin, and then used a knife and fork to cut the steak. His movements were quick and silent, elegant, and calm. Mike knelt on the ground, his body trembling, and said with trembling teeth, I'm here. Do you know where you are wrong? Yes. Tell me. I shouldn't have let those 7 scumbags take the money. It was the boss's money. I should have just killed them. You are very conscious. Since you are wrong, you should be punished. Yes, I understand. Boss, I will take off my clothes and run naked on the streets of Gotham for 100 times. Mike trembled and said with a determined look. The space seemed to pause for a moment, and no one could react to Mike's determination to punish him. Why run naked on the streets of Gotham for 100 times? Kai. A sound of metal being twisted. The pure silver knife and fork in Badi's hand was pressed down by his fingers, and it bent strangely. He looked at Mike with an indifferent expression, which made Mike feel creepy. Carmine's eyebrows twitched twice. The atmosphere suddenly became quiet for a while, and there was a pressure on the whole space. The pressure brought by Badi made Mike feel a little uneasy, and his hair stood up. Carmine's breathing slowed down a little. After a while of silence, Badi smiled and apologized to Carmine. Carmine said it was okay, and asked the butler to bring in a set of tabla again. He secretly squeezed the slightly wet handles of the silver knife and fork. Mike, you are a smart man, so I keep you. If you want to live, you can. How much money is left? $300,000. Then pay me 10 times the money within 3 days, and you can live. Badi said indifferently. He didn't care about Mike's life at all. But Mike was a despicable, shameless guy. There were many things such a guy could do, so Badi wanted to keep him to handle some jobs that even he felt dirty. Mike was just as Badi expected. This strong man had no moral integrity. He was so scared that his face changed drastically, and tears flowed from his eyes. He was even more awesome than the best actor. Boss, please don't. A trip to Thailand only earns $1 million. I can't get $3 million in Gotham in 3 days. Mike cried loudly, tears flowing down without any cost. Even the gangster boss Carmine thought that Mike was too dramatic. You shouldn't be in the mercenary world. Hollywood is the place for you to perform. I don't care. Mike, your heart and pulse don't react at all. I don't care what you want from me. I only care what you can do. I will reward you with what you want. Now, put away your tears and get out. Badi said to Mike with a smile. This smile was no less than the devil's smile. He decided his life and death in a casual conversation, and ignored his life and death. Mike felt cold in his heart. The atmosphere in the air subtly sank, making Mike feel breathless. From the beginning, Badi knew that he had been acting. Mike gritted his teeth, resolutely put away his tears, stood up, and said, I'm going to prepare to rob a bank now. Boss, if I die, please bury me under Brockback Mountain in Wyoming. Get lost. After Mike left, after a period of silence, the conversation here returned to normal. I'm sorry, Carmine, I ruined the atmosphere. Badi put down his knife and fork and said. After Mike's interruption, Badi felt a little bit upset about the atmosphere and thoughts. Carmine said that he understood. I have heard that Mike is unreliable, but his ability is not bad. I wish you to get $3 million here. Money is not the most important thing, Carmine. I will go to Metropolis in 3 days. In the near future, I hope to let you take care of Gotham. Badi said. His words were domineering and unquestionable. Carmine paused when he wanted to drink brandy. This statement is too arrogant. Chapter 59 Going to the Metropolis. Sir, this joke is not funny. Carmine put down the silver knife and fork in his hand, his face expressionless, and gently wiped the corner of his mouth with a napkin, showing good cultivation and invisible anger. Badi's arrogant words made him furious. He wanted him to be the underworld godfather who ruled most of Gotham. He simply didn't know what was good for him. Who is he? Carmine Falcone. In less than half a year, he had the confidence and plan to split up, or suppress, kill, and eliminate the alliance that was formed to compete with him for the control of the underworld in Gotham. He was almost certain to sit on the throne of the godfather who ruled the Gotham underworld, the ruler. Although it may not be as good as the four major families that founded Gotham, the Wayne family, the Elliott family, the Kane family, and the Cobblepot family, these four family businesses are spread all over the city and control all areas of the city. The Falcone family, that ruled the Gotham underworld, may be slightly lower end than them, and it is vulgar and cannot reach the level. But everyone has to give some face. After a period of precipitation, maybe they can become the fifth big family in Gotham and stand immortal in Gotham. Now a young man who is only 20 years old is talking big in front of him, wanting to take him as his subordinate and hand over Gotham to him to manage? Carmine felt insulted. He was very shrewd, and his face remained calm. He was angry for a while, but soon he was fine. The anger came and went quickly, and it disappeared quietly. Carmine even laughed at himself. When did he get angry so easily for someone else's words? He was also angry for the words of an arrogant person. It was really funny. It can only be blamed on the excessive pressure that Badi put on him, which made him unbalanced for a while. Realizing this, Carmine returned to normal and returned to the shrewdness of the head of the Falcone family. Badi was originally concentrating on dealing with the food. 60% of the food on the table went into his mouth. Although it was fast, it was elegant and calm. For him, there are only two things in this world that cannot be let down: food and my heart. Hearing Carmine's self-deprecating laugh, Badi, who was originally looking at the steak, also glanced at him. Similarly, he smiled, put the knife and fork in his hand lightly on the edge of the plate, picked up the brandy in the glass, took a sip gently, and then shook the amber brandy in the glass, which was crystal clear. Solemn but not gorgeous. I'm just talking about the future. One day, you will be driven out of Gotham. Come to me. Come to Metropolis to find me. I will help you rule Gotham. Badi raised the high-heeled glass, motioned to him, and drank it all in one gulp with a smile. The implication of this remark is very clear, which is nothing more than when you fail, come and be my subordinate. Carmine's face was calm, and he did not deny Badi's words. In the future, if you can't stand in Metropolis, you can also come to me. Carmine had a little mockery on his lips, and he also raised his glass in vain, toasting Badi with a glass of wine without showing any weakness, and drank it all with a smile, looking very heroic. Carmine is now in his prime, ambitious, and has money and power. He is also courageous and intelligent. How could he fail and be driven out of Gotham? Not to mention that in the future, after unifying the underworld of Gotham, it will be even more impossible for others to drive him out of Gotham. Therefore, he felt that what Badi said was a joke. Carmine, who had never thought about failure, also responded to Badi in the same way. On the contrary, he was more looking forward to Badi going to Metropolis and rolling back to Gotham to be his subordinate. With an invulnerable superhuman subordinate, he must be able to do more things. Carmine thought slightly. Badi couldn't help laughing. In the future, Gotham will be full of talented people, including Penguin, Joker, Bane, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Riddler, Mr. Freeze, Killer Croc, Black Mask, Hush, Clayface, Ventriloquist, Deadshot, Hugo Strange, Maxi Zeus, etc. They are all a group of criminals with high IQs, but they have to deal with them all the time. Some of them have unified the Gotham underworld, but they have never been victorious. Falcone was the first person to be torn off the throne of the ruler of the Gotham underworld. He stayed away from Gotham for a long time before coming back to control Gotham. As a result, he could only fail because of the existence of Batman. From then on, Gotham was really a place where criminals and heroes took turns, and it became Batman's playground. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you. Let time witness the future. When I can't rule Metropolis, I'll be your subordinate. When you are expelled from Gotham, be my subordinate. Badi stood up, poured himself a glass of brandy, and poured a glass of wine for Carmine. He raised his glass and held it in the air. The amber liquid shone brightly under the light. "Okay, I'll wait for you." Carmine looked at Badi's calm and confident smile and stood up as well, full of confidence. The two clinked their glasses and drank the wine in their glasses with a smile. Badi was very satisfied. Today, he had gained a lot of potential things in Gotham. Not to mention the environment, terrain facilities, Mike, the future Poison Ivy, etc. in Gotham, as well as the approximate time of the appearance of some villains. Let him determine the time of Batman's appearance. Of course, if Badi kills Bruce now, there may be no Batman. But he doesn't need to get involved in this muddy water of Gotham. Even in the future, even if Batman becomes his enemy, he doesn't mind. Because when Batman appears, he has already completed the layout. It will not stop him, just because one or two of his men are defeated. The general trend he wants to create, under the rolling wheel layout, whoever stands in the way will be crushed to death. And Badi doesn't even need to take action. Naturally there will be other people to crush the so-called hero. After all, he came very early, so early that heroes had not yet appeared, and there was no era of flourishing. It was enough for him to arrange everything and do his work. Badi put down his wine glass, walked to the small balcony, and opened the French window. The autumn wind was like an elf, sweeping into the room, causing slight ripples. In the night, dense lights flickered like fire on Gotham. Here, he looked across the balcony, as if standing in a corner of Gotham, seeing all the scenery. Badi's eyes flashed slightly, and a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Do you want me to help you unify Gotham?" Carmine refused without hesitation. "Gotham is already in my pocket. A newly built foundation of Alan Wayne. The interior is bright. On the dark red rosewood rectangular table were documents and a portrait of Badi, which was very lifelike. Sitting beside the table were aristocratic figures. The men were dressed in leather suits, gentle and elegant, and the women were graceful, with their evening gowns bringing out the scent of expensive perfume, elegant and charming. But everyone was wearing a white mask, shaped like an owl, which looked a bit weird. Thomas Wayne is dead. Not bad. But one of his claws was smashed to pieces by a passerby. This kind of power is really terrifying. Dare to challenge the Court of Owls in Gotham? He looks pretty good. His lower body must be very powerful. Don't be horny, slut. Should we deal with him? No, it's not appropriate now. The Wayne family head is dead. We should lie in wait. Gotham must be in turmoil recently, and it's not suitable for any more trouble. Then let him live a little longer. 3 days later, Badi and Mike stepped out of the Carmine Hotel and went to the Metropolis. "Boss, how did you know that Falcone would give me $3 million? Mike asked in confusion, carrying 2 large boxes. "It's an investment. It's also a conquest. It's also a mutual assistance. Carmine is good," Badi said. Mike nodded seriously, not knowing the dirty things between Badi and Falcone, just thinking that this boss is really capable. Having a meal with the head of Falcone's family and cheated $3 million. "Boss, what did you do with the $300,000? Mike asked. "To support a woman," Badi said. Mike said, "Oh," feeling indignant, "that's my money." Chapter 60 Death Knell, Monster Laboratory. An old biological gas laboratory in Colorado during World War II. Now it has been abandoned. At the beginning, after the military base and underground laboratory in Nevada were completely destroyed by Badi, General Vic transported Jenny and Slade here to continue secret biological experiments. After almost 4 months of dissection and testing of multiple human bodies obtained by General Vic, Jenny not only saved Slade, but also really created a genetic serum that can strengthen the human body. However, the price of the genetic serum is lifespan. Those who can't survive may die of exhaustion. Those who can survive have a 50% chance of becoming a monster. Jenny got inspiration from Badi's genes, supplemented by her own improved catalyst and formulated serum based on Slade's genes. Slow down the number of cell divisions, increase the strength of cells, obtain powerful strength, enhance various functions of the body, and surpass various functions of humans. Life Force strength. In the laboratory, the environment is old, and the auxiliary equipment and facilities are the latest in the contemporary era, including various heart rate detection, brainwave detection, and blood tests. In the darkness, the light was like a pillar shining on the experimental table. There was a slight chill in the air. The temperature here was 15 degrees, not too cold, nor too hot. On the experimental table, the fine steel firmly bound Slade's hands and feet. His wrists and ankles were swollen and bloody from the struggle. He opened his eyes, and the incandescent light in front of him was haloed, gradually becoming clearer from blur. This was not the first time he had woken up. Facing his situation, he still felt the anger in his heart. General Vic used him as a biological experiment. Because he had the willpower that ordinary people did not have, and could endure the most intense pain, the final gene adjustment was completed by him. He would not refuse a strong force. If it really succeeded, he would not mind accepting the transformation of the gene serum, but the problem was that he had never succeeded. Having died once, he cherished his life more than anyone else, and knew the fear of death more. Since waking up, he could hear the sound of blood splattering from the flesh balls bursting in the darkness every day. None of the other experimental subjects could bear the pain and died. Jenny walked out of the darkness, wearing a white coat and a bright red evening dress. She entered the range of the beam of light. The light made her look charming, and her graceful figure was illuminated to be sexy and seductive. She looked down from above and sneered, "Hey, you're awake." The corners of her mouth curled up, and she looked at Slade with sarcasm and playfulness, enjoying the anger from Slade at this moment. Thinking back to the beginning, Slade had added a lot of obstacles to her and Badi. Now, seeing Slade lying on the experimental table in confinement, she felt very happy and joyful. Slade stared coldly at Jenna's face. With the light from above shining downward, Jenna's face was dark and weird, revealing a terrifying smile. "If Badi knew you had become like this, I'm afraid he would rather kill you than save you," Slade said coldly. Jenny narrowed her eyes slightly, smiling with a fake smile. "Save me? Are you crazy?" Slade retracted his gaze, and the light from the top made his vision blurred. His eyes saw, and he felt very uncomfortable. He closed his eyes and snorted coldly. "In the entire underground research institute, only you and 31 soldiers who are disabled for life survive on the negative first floor. Wherever he goes, everyone dies. It's not to save you. Those 31 soldiers who are disabled for life will not be disabled, but dead." Jenna's pupils shrank, and pain appeared in her eyes. Her face was ferocious. "You don't understand him. You don't understand him." Slade answered the same way. In terms of understanding Badi, Slade knows more about it than Jenny in every aspect. He knows Badi's horror deeply, whether it is intelligence or force. Badi was imprisoned, but he still seized a little opportunity and used everyone's psychology to achieve his goal. Before his death, Slade was the one who saw the most. He lost unjustly and was convinced. But whether it was unjust, and whether he was convinced or not, he still had the anger to kill Badi in his heart. Slade said coldly, "Why do you think he said so much nonsense to me in the briefing? In order to clear you of everything, and to keep you alive, he did so much. He even shot you with 2 insignificant shots. Even I was fooled, and obediently acted as his messenger, making everyone, including General Vic, believe that he is a cruel beast." Slade sneered, "You are too naive. You are still being used by General Vic. If Badi saw what you look like now, he would probably be disappointed to the extreme." Jenna's face sank. She no longer had the intention of watching the show and mocking Slade. Her face was hideous and distorted, and she said with staring eyes, "Do you want me to let you out?" Slade narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "Badi would not hope." Jenna's face was distorted and crazy. "Shut up. You talk as if you have a very good relationship with my dear Badi. At the beginning, your resistance was the strongest, and it was you who caused Badi to be paralyzed. Have you forgotten how your hateful face treated me and Badi?" Slade gritted his teeth faintly. His eyes were cold. "You will never be as good as Badi." A syringe appeared in Jenna's hand, with a yellow liquid with a hint of green in it. She narrowed her eyes fiercely. "Do you know what this is?" "This is the idea Badi gave me, a strengthening drug for human strengthening." Slade's face turned pale. This was the culprit of the blood cells bursting and screaming that he heard every day. If it could succeed, it would be fine, but it was obviously something with a low success rate that had never succeeded. You have a 50% chance of success. Endure the pain and become a superhuman, become a monster, or explode and die. Jenny laughed cruelly, inserted the needle into Slade's heart, and shot it. Also, I'll tell you, I made 2 in total. This one is for you, with a 50% chance, and the other one is for me, with a 70% chance. I sincerely wish you success, Slade. Jenny pulled out the needle. When the time comes, I will naturally go to Badi to ask for clarification. Slade's eyes were instantly bloodshot. His face was grim with pain. His throat was howling with pain. His chest was about to explode. His hands and feet were constantly struggling and bleeding. His body was exposed with blue veins, as if there were mice walking inside. It was horrifying. On the first day, Slade almost died of dehydration. After injecting more than 10 doses of hyaluronic acid, he barely avoided death from dehydration. On the second day, blood flowed out of every pore of his body, bleeding from 7 holes, and he almost died, with only a trace of pulse left. On the third day, Slade recovered. His heart beat like a drum, his hands and feet struggled, and he easily broke free from his handcuffs and leg irons. Jenny saw that Slade succeeded, and decisively gave herself an injection. However, the facts did not change as she had guessed. It was as if a bomb exploded in her body, bursting and propping up inside her body, and her body was like a balloon with tumors, bone hyperplasia, keratinization, tearing and recovery, growth and destruction, and an infinite cycle. Finally, her entire body became huge, turning into a 4-meter tall, ferocious monster that was roaring towards the sky. Chapter 61. Suicide Slum. The Suicide Slum is located in the southern part of the metropolis. It is economically backward, crime is rampant, guns are rampant, and violence is frequent. As the name suggests, this place is the most backward and crime-ridden area in the metropolis. People have a hard time living, and gangs of all sizes are everywhere. In fact, its real name is not the Suicide Slum, but Hope Bay. It's just that this place is too desperate and chaotic. When talking about this place, people always say that those who come here are committing chronic suicide. Because only the poor who really have nowhere to go will consider living here. Over time, this place is called the Suicide Slum, and no one cares about the real name. When Badi stepped into this environment, he had already stained his white Martin boots as soon as he entered. He stepped on the black puddle, and the sewage stained the white shoe surface black. The tip of his nose always rushed into 1,000 mixed smells. Rotten, the smell of socks that had not been washed for hundreds of years, and the smell of feces. It was simply turbid and smelly. Fortunately, Badi was able to control his sense of smell. Otherwise the Kryptonian would have sacrificed himself in the smell of the Suicide Slum as soon as he entered. Mike followed behind Batistu with a suitcase in his hand. When he saw that Batistu's shoes were stained, he could not help but curse in his heart. Dirty, 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 so dirty. There is so much dog shit here. Hurry up and step on it, and pour a bucket of urine on him from the upstairs. You are wearing a flashy white windbreaker. Is it great that you are handsome? Is it great that you are good at fighting? Is it great that bullets cannot penetrate you? He kept cursing in his heart. He could not let go of his $300,000, which was used by Batistu to support a woman. You have to know that it was the powder he had worked so hard to get from Thailand and then sold to Gotham. It was not easy to make money. Now he met Batistu, and he has no freedom. He really has no place to cry. Batistu's color is like a ray of light in the darkness. It is so white that it attracts the attention of the entire Suicide Slum. The hunched old man huddled against the wall in the corner looked over curiously. His belly was swollen, his face was skinny, and he stared with 2 big eyes. The dirty child looked over curiously. The woman on the balcony upstairs who was collecting clothes also looked over curiously. Some strong passers-by walked quickly with an expression of prey on their faces. This is really strange. The white color is too clean. He should not be someone who enters the Suicide Slum, because his clothes will be dirty. The tailor-made clothes cost at least several $1,000s. The owner of Falcone was willing to spend a lot of money. Everyone can see that the clothes are extraordinary. Combined with the indifferent face and extraordinary temperament, standing here is a landscape which makes people feel very strange. Badi stopped. A group of people chased and beat a sloppy drunkard. The drunkard staggered, covered his head, and ran around in a panic with a green beer bottle in his hand, spilling beer. The smell of beer spread. "Don't hit me, don't hit me, hey, don't hit me, no." The drunkard stumbled and fell in front of Badi, curled up tightly. After a group of people glanced at Badi with strange eyes, they were led by a strong white young man and kicked and punched the drunkard who was curled up on the ground. Mud flew everywhere until he was exhausted. The leading young man asked the others to stop, but he kicked the drunkard hard. The drunkard screamed in pain. The young man exhaled angrily, inserted his fingers into the drunkard's hair, lifted the drunkard up, and shouted with a red face, "Leon, you took my money, where is my goods?" After the young man finished speaking, he really wanted to beat the drunkard to death. It was all his fault that he had been deceived by his dogshit heart, listened to his temptation, gave him $300, and wanted to contact the upstream supplier from him to purchase goods and do a white powder business so as to become a rich winner. He never expected that this guy who said nice things actually used his money to buy alcohol. After being evaded again and again, he angrily found that the drunkard did not do anything. He was so angry that he took his brothers who had collected money and chased the drunkard to beat him. The drunkard was beaten with a black eye and a swollen face. Although a lot of beer in the beer bottle was spilled, he was still reluctant to let go, or he held the bottle tightly to make him feel a little bit of existence. The drunkard knelt down in front of the young man, holding the angry young man's thigh with a swollen nose and a bruised face, crying pitifully, "Leon, stop hitting me, I'm going to die if you hit me again. I just accidentally lost the money. You dare to lie. If you return the money or the goods today, I will beat you to death." The young man stared. His anger rose again, and he clenched his other hand into a fist and hit the drunkard's head hard, making the drunkard dizzy and dazed, almost thinking he was going to die. Just as the angry young man was about to hit him again, the drunkard shouted, "Don't, Leon, I can introduce you to the international gangs and criminal organizations. It's much better to hang out with them. I have connections, I know them, you know, I have dealt with them before." The international gangs and criminal organizations are both large gangs in the metropolis, not comparable to the small pond here in the suicide slum. If you can get in, it will certainly be better than here. But it is often difficult to enter, and even if you enter, you will be cannon fodder and easily die in the gunfight. Leon's heart was moved, his eyes were hesitant, and he didn't punch. "Don't believe it, Leon. He is just a drunkard who was beaten up by the international gang and the criminal organization in Metropolis, and he came to the suicide slums and was useless." A young man around said. Obviously everyone knew the past history of this drunkard. He was once a gang leader who walked out of the suicide slums, and then he was beaten to a pulp in the big city of Metropolis. He knelt down and begged for charity from other big gangs, and only then did he have a chance to return to the suicide slums and become a decadent drunkard here. He had a moment of glory when he walked out of the suicide slums, but in the end he was beaten like a dog, wagging his tail and begging for mercy. Leon's anger rose from his heart again, and he desperately punched and kicked the drunkard, making the drunkard scream, don't hit me, don't hit me. I know the family, the Hells Angels. I can introduce you to it." "Ah, no." The drunkard vomited blood, curled up again, and was punched and kicked. As soon as the drunkard started talking, Badi rubbed the palm of his left hand with his right thumb. It looked like he was gently holding his left hand. In fact, this posture was Badi's habitual action when thinking. It was not easy to show it in the Underground Research Institute, but it didn't matter when he came out. This is the real world. It's not like the American comics, where there are only a few protagonists and the supporting roles perform a drama. It always makes people feel that the whole world has only protagonists and supporting roles, and the others are just passers-by. The real metropolis is not that simple. At least, the intricate interest relations and the complexity of a world-class city are definitely not simple. He needs to understand this metropolis, starting from the dark side. Regardless of light or darkness, regardless of interests or violence, he must rule. "Stop, do you want to beat him to death?" Badi rubbed the palm of his left hand with his right thumb and glanced at the drunkard curled up underground. The action of several people surrounding the drunkard who was punching and kicking paused and looked at Badi, sweeping from head to feet and then from feet to head. Judging from his appearance alone, Badi looks very noble. In their eyes, being rich means being rich. Rich people are not stingy in throwing some money to save beggars on the street, especially drunkards in danger. Throwing some money will earn others gratitude and enjoy their high status of giving alms. Leon looked at Badi, and after a slight hesitation, he guessed the reason why they stopped. He was slightly happy in his heart, thinking that he might be able to get his money back from this man. He pretended to be puzzled and said, "Why? He cheated us of our money, and he deserves to be beaten to death." Badi nodded in agreement, then pulled out a Colt Python revolver from Mike's waist and handed it to Jack. "Use a gun, it's faster." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, Drunkard's Home. Leon and his friends were stunned by the shiny Colt Python revolver. Use a gun. This was not the process he had in mind. This man did not follow the routine. Leon looked at Badi with an ugly expression. He was not crazy, so he would not take the Python revolver. The suicide slums might be messy and dirty, and people often died. But shooting a person openly like this, even a pig would not do such a thing easily. If this could be done, there would not be a large number of civilians entering here to survive. There are also some rules here. This rule does not allow a person to be shot in broad daylight. He did not have enough ability to ignore the police's arrest. He was just a gangster who wanted to enter, and he was not a gang leader who could let someone take the blame. Once he took the pistol and shot in anger, he would really have to hide from the XZ in the future, unless a gang took him in. Leon's face flushed red, and he glared at Badi angrily. He had already regarded Badi as a rich nobleman who was looking for fun. The behavior of rich people is always abnormal and unpredictable. He didn't dare to do anything to Badi, because Badi's clothes alone looked expensive, plus his temperament, revolver, and strong bodyguards. He could only spit on the ground beside him, and glared at Badi angrily. "Get lost." Then he turned around, and beat the drunkard. In the end, he left with a few people. Before leaving, he solemnly threatened and warned the drunkard, either return the money or return the goods, otherwise he would beat him every time he saw him. This made Badi look like a gangster showing off his power. When Leon turned around, his eyes were still filled with anger. He glared at Badi hatefully, snorted indignantly, and was quite annoyed that the man in the white windbreaker teased him like this. Badi watched Leon go away with great appreciation. This young man had good eyesight and intelligence. He could hold back his anger, understand the situation, and was not reckless. He was also a charismatic leader who could attract a group of young people to follow him. He was just a rookie, and was cheated of his first pot of gold by this old drunk. Keep an eye on him. You may be colleagues in the future. Badi put the revolver back into Mike's waist, and looked at the drunk on the ground. Mike looked at the group of young people who were leaving angrily, and cursed in his heart. Damn it, I was noticed by the boss, and another group came to steal his food. This won't do. I have to tell them first that I'm the boss's #1 lackey. Mike thought to himself, no matter what, I can't let others take my job. How can I tolerate the opportunity to become a superman leaving me? Get up. Badi glanced at the drunk and said. The young men seemed to be punching and kicking, and they were very strong and fierce, but they didn't hit the vital parts very hard. The drunkard was also an old man who had been beaten a lot and knew how to protect his vital parts, so he just tried his best. He lay on the ground to rest for a while and then recovered and could move. The drunkard looked up at Badi through his messy long hair, and his turbid eyes saw Badi standing up like a giant. He suddenly got up from the ground quickly, wiped the blood on his mouth a few times, stopped his coughing from the injury, and his eyes shone with light. He asked in surprise, "Is it the family? Is it the family? You came to find me." Badi didn't know what kind of organization the family was. He just looked at this sloppy drunkard slightly, and the cheap smell of alcohol hit him in the face. He rubbed his right hand on the palm of his left hand again, and said, "Let's find a place to talk." The drunkard was very happy, and his hunched waist seemed to straighten up a lot. He was so surprised that he couldn't speak. He thought he had something very important to discuss, and he looked around like an agent afraid of being discovered. "Let's go to my house, my house." The drunkard was very happy. He walked towards his house with Badi, looking back every few steps, fearing that Badi would disappear if he turned around. He often walked backwards and boasted about his glorious deeds in the past. Badi then realized that the family the drunkard was talking about was actually a gang created by the upper class of Metropolis for their convenience. It was originally called nobles, to distinguish the character from the gang. Later, after experiencing the baptism of struggles by some upper class people, it became a family gang. The drunkard's home was in this suicide slum, so it was naturally not very good. It was a square, dilapidated house with spots of mud and dust falling off the walls, revealing the brick and stone walls inside. Half of the second floor was still hung with washed white clothes. There was a prison-like iron window, and you could see inside that a skinny boy of 13 or 14 was reading a book, quietly, turning the pages. He closed the book silently until he heard the drunkard's footsteps approaching the door. The drunkard obviously knew that his home was not very comfortable, so he asked Badi to wait at the door for a while, and he went into the house to deal with the mess. Badi stopped at the door and asked him to go in to deal with it. "Go find that boy named Leon and let him join me. When I understand the situation here, I will control this place. I need people." Badi's figure was deep and majestic. He kept rubbing the palm of his left hand with his right thumb. He never stopped thinking and decided to rule here as soon as possible, spreading from the suicide slum to the city center of the metropolis. Mike responded. He didn't expect his opponent to appear so soon, and he had to invite him himself. This shitty thing was really fucked, but he didn't dare not complete it. Compared with this, it would be more tragic to leave an impression of incompetence in front of Badi. Mike turned around and left. As for how to find Leon and others, it was naturally up to him to find them. When the drunkard entered the house, he didn't deal with the mess in his house. Instead, he saw his son sitting on the only cleanest chair, and his anger rose immediately. He took the empty beer bottle and smashed it on the 13 or 14-year-old son's head. The beer bottle did not break, but there was a bang. The son was caught off guard, and the yellowed book in his hand fell to the ground. His head hurt so much that his eyes were blurred. The drunkard then kicked his son to the ground angrily, causing his hands and feet to be scratched and bleeding. When the torn clothes were opened, the skin inside was covered with various bruises and wounds. It was obvious that he had suffered a lot of abuse in the past. He grabbed his son's collar with one hand and growled in a low voice, "How dare you sit on this chair and make it dirty? I have raised you for more than 10 years, and you even sold your ass to buy me a sip of wine. How dare you, an ungrateful person like you, sit on my chair, eat my food, read useless books all day long? Listen, get into the hut, close the door, and don't come out to delay my business. I will sell your kidney." The 13 or 14-year-old boy's breathing tightened instantly. His face turned pale with panic. He didn't care about the pain of being kicked. A big lump appeared on his head, and he didn't care about the book. He crawled from the ground into the small room next door and closed the wooden door that looked like a dead tree. After dealing with his son fiercely, the drunkard squeezed his face again, forced a kind and flattering smile, and invited Badi to enter the house. But he was a little surprised that the bodyguard disappeared. Badi waited for the chair to cool down before sitting down. The drunkard couldn't wait to ask, "Excuse me, which family you are from?" "Not any family, I just want to ask about the situation in the metropolis. If you answer well, maybe you can follow me. If you answer averagely, you can get a few $100s, Badi said calmly. The drunkard was startled. He knew this is a new family that wants to challenge the old order, just want to get some information. Maybe the person in front of him is from another city. The drunkard's heart was suddenly hot, thinking of the humiliation in the past. His breathing became heavier. If he can help him conquer the world, he will be a loyal minister, and the benefits are countless. As for failure, he has failed once. No matter how he kneels and begs for mercy, it doesn't matter. I understand, I know. The drunkard's eyes were bright. Badi nodded, his eyes slightly swept over the drunkard in front of him, scanned the environment, and stopped on a book on the ground. Some of the books were yellowed and the pages were curled up. Quantum theory, I can help you. I once worked hard in a big city. I wonder if you have heard of my name. The drunkard licked his lips. He really wanted him to recruit him, because he heard his name. My name is Lionel Luther. The drunkard said. HMM. Badi raised his eyebrows and turned his eyes away from quantum theory. He saw Lionel Luther's eager face and then looked behind him. A hateful and resentful look appeared in the crack of the door. This look looked at his father, then turned to Badi and met Badi's eyes. The boy's pupils shrank, his eyes disappeared into the darkness of the room, and he gently closed the door with a click. Chapter 63 Metropolitan Power. Luther. Badi's lips curled up slightly. If he was still hesitant about whether to accept the drunkard before, now because of his son, Badi felt that he should accept this drunkard. Lionel saw that Badi seemed to be in a good mood and thought that he really heard of his name. He suddenly shook his body, refreshed and rejuvenated. I wonder what the boss wants to know? Lionel took the opportunity to call the boss directly. Badi withdrew his eyes from the old wooden door and said, let's talk about the power of the suicide slum first. Lionel coughed and smoothed his messy hair. His sloppy appearance showed a serious look. Although the suicide slums are in chaos, with gangs everywhere, there are often gang fights and some gang members have died. But in general, there are still certain rules here, otherwise there would be no civilians living here. From Suicide Street, Death Alley, to Tangshan Avenue, there are gang members in almost every block. There are formal gangs with hundreds of people, as small as 2 or 3 people, and they also use the name of gangs to carry out arms, drugs, murder and arson here. As Lionel slowly explained, Badi roughly outlined the position of the suicide slums in the metropolis, just like the anus of a human body, where waste is discharged. All the darkness is here. There are hundreds of gangs alone. Brotherhood, Hand Chopping Society, Blue Dragon Gang, Giant Gang, Mafia, Vietnamese Gang, Iron Blood Banner Society, Angel Gang, Hell Society, 13 Covenants, Angels of Death Gang, Hell Angels Gang, Biker Gang, Satan Hell, Rose Blood, First Blood, Jack Gang, Dark Leader, Secret Organization, 21 Warriors, Light of God, Jerusalem, Thunderous Fury, Killer Covenant, Brothers Alliance, and so on. The names of these gangs are more powerful than each other, so powerful that even Badi can't look directly at them. There is even a gang called the Shit Throwing Gang that specializes in extorting protection money and throwing shit at you in 24 hours a day if you don't pay. It's simply bizarre to the extreme. Of course, many of them are actually contact points for various organizations here, killer organizations or some shady organizations. Among them, the largest ones here are only 5 organizations that are more or less connected to the Metropolitan Center. City Domination Society, 99. Gambino Mafia Branch. Brotherhood. Underground Trade Fair. The 5 largest gangs in suicide slums, except for the Brotherhood, which is a local organization. All the others have support from the central cities of the metropolis. Lionel talked for a while, and suddenly felt an itchy throat, and hurried to pour himself a glass of water. When pouring, he suddenly remembered that he had not poured water for the boss, and hurriedly took out his son's cleaner cup, and poured a glass for Badi. Badi did not drink, but said, continue. The distribution of power in the central cities of the metropolis. Lionel gulped down a mouthful of boiled water, and the water flowed from the corners of his mouth to his spiked beard. He swallowed and continued. The underworld of the metropolis is basically divided by 5 forces, and no one can get a piece of the cake from them. Lionel said, shook his head bitterly, and then cheered up and said, the last thing you can mess with in the metropolis is the family. This is an organization jointly created by the upper class, nobles, and wealthy people to facilitate their actions and deal with some shady gangs. It is also an organization used by these upper class people to protect their property and personal safety. They have close ties with the metropolitan councillors, the police, and even the military. They are not deeply involved in the underworld, but no one dares to mess with them. The boss of them is Ada Edge of the Edge family of Galaxy Media. The underground trade fair in the suicide slums is where they deal with dirty things. In addition, there is the international gang of the Mannheim family. The city domination in the suicide slums is their branch. Organization 100 of the Wheel family is often referred to as the criminal organization 100. 99 and the suicide slums is their branch. The international gang and organization 100 are sworn enemies and often clash. The Gambino Mafia also has a certain status in the metropolitan underworld. It is known for its ruthlessness. No one wants to face such a crazy maniac. They are the Gambino Mafia from New York. They have branches in various cities in the United States. The one developed in Metropolitan is the 27th branch. The last one is the Bloody Angels, a motorcycle gang founded in California in 1948, with branches in 15 countries. It develops its power by operating marijuana plants, arms trading, and monopolizing strip clubs. It is one of the 4 largest gangster motorcycle gangs in the world. Its characteristics are that its members are all tattooed and drive Harley motorcycles. In general, the underworld forces in Metropolitan are not as exclusive to outsiders as Gotham. Gotham is all in a circle. We play by ourselves. If you want to come in, the whole Gotham will beat you up and beat you until your mother doesn't recognize you. On the surface, the underworld forces will deal with you, but behind the scenes, the Court of Owls will think that you are invading their territory and assassinate you. So Gotham City messed around in its own city and was more resistant to outsiders coming to occupy the position of the circle. Metropolis was connected to the world and accepted all kinds of chaos from outsiders. Of course, in the future, Metropolis will also connect with aliens and accept all kinds of destruction and invasion by aliens. In other words, if Badi wants to unify the underworld of Metropolis, he only needs to deal with 4 gangs. The International Gang, Organization 100, Gambino Mafia, and Bloody Angel. Among them, the Gambino Mafia and Bloody Angel are transcontinental and transnational criminal organizations. Badi is very suspicious. If he destroys these organizations, when they send people to do him, Badi has already unified Metropolis. One will die if one comes. If Badi is annoyed, he will kill them directly and there will be no one left. So in fact, these 2 organizations are the least valued by him. They seem to be big, but they are the least able to support. Especially when he can fly, no matter how many branches around the world can save them. On the contrary, the International Gang and Organization 100, such local organizations are deeply rooted and will hinder him. As for the most powerful family gangs, Badi didn't even take them seriously. The family gang is not an organization involved in organized crime, but a means for a group of so-called aristocrats and wealthy people to protect themselves. As long as Badi uses his advanced knowledge, opens dozens of companies, and uses capital to defeat them, their family will naturally fall apart. When they are the only family left, they will be eager to disband and stick to Badi's thighs to beg for shelter and not to be sniped by capital. After understanding all this, Badi's right thumb continued to touch the palm of his left hand slightly. He needed to unify the suicide slums as soon as possible and create a biological company in the central city of the metropolis. At least he had to create a planet destroyer to assist himself. If possible, in the future, he would gradually erode the cutting-edge science and technology research laboratory, another name is Interstellar Laboratory. Badi's eyes flashed with a fierce light, and he stood up from the chair. Lionel Luthor, gather some people you trust. Within a month, I want the suicide slums to only obey my orders. Chapter 64 Excitement. In the Kendo district, the most famous scenery is the Brotherhood nightclub established by the Brotherhood. There are a large number of dancers, colorful lights, cheap alcohol stimulation, and the Brotherhood sells all kinds of powder, people, and organs. This is also a suicide slum. Compared with other places, the streets here are finally a little cleaner, and there is no stench of feces and urine on the street. The Brotherhood is a local gang organization. Unlike the other 4 major gang organizations, it is composed entirely of locals. They are all extremely vicious. The poor people who have no food to eat are desperate to survive. Even the other organizations have no intention of banning and attacking this Brotherhood. Because they are too poor, they are crazy about poverty. Their only source of survival is to really protect their little money. Whoever dares to fight, will fight to pull you down. For this group of crazy people, this is their reverse scale, and no organization is full of food to come here to mess with them. Therefore, they rely on their tenacious vitality and life, led by the three brothers, to establish the Brotherhood and make a living in the suicide slum. Mike was very tactful and stepped forward to hand in the ticket. He pushed open the glass door that was obviously painted with a vulgar golden door frame. Leon was a step slower and also ran forward to push open another door. The hot and noisy atmosphere hit us. In this late autumn, close to winter environment, the heat wave of the nightclub rolled out, warming the hair of the three people. The blood seemed to flow faster with the crazy music. The colorful laser lights were spinning wildly on the ceiling. People with red faces and ears were twisting their waists wildly, holding their hands high, venting their energy with all their might, and having fun with the dancers, twisting their limbs. Badi entered this brother nightclub openly, but the nightclub did not prohibit anyone from entering. It was just that Badi's clothes obviously did not look like those of a slum dweller, which attracted the attention of the two gatekeepers. He also brought two bodyguards. Is the boss inviting guests today? I haven't heard of it. It looks like someone from outside. Are you here to play? I don't know. Let's inform Boss Jetly first. The two black men guarding the gate looked at Badi suspiciously. After a brief discussion, they felt that he was a strange person. One of them ran away to inform the boss. There are three bosses in the Brotherhood. The three brothers have a deep relationship. Boss Jetly is the third and the smartest one. 70% of the credit for the Brotherhood being able to stand in the slums should be attributed to him. Badi frowned and stepped into the place. The turbid air here was suffocating. Even if he blocked his sense of smell, he felt that the filth of the environment seemed to penetrate every pore of his body. The heat was so stuffy that it was suffocating. Mike and Leon walked behind him. Leon was a little ambitious. He resisted looking at the dancer and turned back to look at the white and tall figure of the boss in front of him. He felt a little happy and fearful in his heart. He didn't know what kind of deeds this new boss would lead them to do. Mike found him and asked him to join Badi. As all his money was cheated away by Lionel, he and his partner were planning to join a gang to make a living. They hit it off, and Leon and his partner all joined Badi. They never expected that they would receive a settlement fee of $1,000 after joining. They were so happy. But at the same time, the smart Leon was also a little scared. In the 1980s, the gold content of $1,000 was shocking. Several of them used up all their savings to squeeze out $300 to buy a pink bet. All of a sudden, Badi gave a settlement fee of $1,000, which made people's heart beat faster and their blood boiled. They wanted to take a knife to chop people for Badi, cut through thorns, and rule the slums. While other partners were in the ecstasy of money, Leon was still sober. He didn't know what Badi would lead them to do, and he was also worried about the unknown in the future. Badi frowned and walked towards the stairs that were a foot deep. He made a big circle. There were also people standing guard at the stairs. From time to time, he stretched his head to look at the twisting dancer in the middle of the stage. His eyes were obscene. When Badi almost came to him, he put away his greedy eyes with regret and dissatisfaction, frowning and looking at Badi, who was coming with suspicion. Mike stepped forward and took the initiative to say that he was looking for their boss. The gatekeeper obviously didn't believe it. Their boss didn't notify him that someone was looking for him. Mike saw that he couldn't fool him, so he directly grabbed the gatekeeper's aorta and chopped his neck with his hand knife, knocked him unconscious, and threw him to the dark corner. The whole dance hall was noisy and hot, but not many people saw this scene. In fact, they did not have an appointment, and they had nothing to do with the boss of the fraternity here. Leon watched Mike do things silently from behind. Mike had given instructions before. Seeing Mike directly attacking the gatekeeper, he was shocked, but seeing Badi did not move, he calmed down and watched Mike lead the way silently. The three of them walked up the stairs. Mike led the way. When he saw someone passing by or guarding the gate, he stepped forward and knocked them out with his fists. Leon's eyebrows jumped, and he was frightened and excited. The Brotherhood was one of the gangs in the slums, and it was an existence that Leon had always looked up to. He had heard that the Brotherhood had done many cruel and shocking things for its own interests, such as cutting off people's limbs, selling internal organs, breaking the hands and feet of orphans, and letting them beg for food. It was so cruel that it was outrageous. Their base camp was a bloody tiger's den. But he didn't expect that now there were 3 people walking in a bloody tiger's den. Mike was strong and agile, and his attacks were fierce. He knocked people out when he met them, and he never missed. He was just like a hero who bravely broke into the devil's nest and cut a bloody path. Although Leon didn't make a move, just following them, watching the 2 people's calm demeanor and what they did, he was already excited, his body trembling, and his heart was excited. He wished he had the ability to deal with the enemy like Mike. After all, they were going to deal with a brutal brotherhood in the slums. Just thinking about it made him extremely excited. Chapter 65 will be posted after King Ming Festival. I have finished writing, but I just feel that something is not right, but my brain is blocked at the moment, and I can't check anything. I will check it a few times after I finish King Ming Festival and publish it after the revision is completed. I should publish 2 chapters directly in the evening. I wish everyone a happy King Ming Festival. Chapter 66. First name. Bang. Mike raised his elbow and chopped horizontally, knocking out the fraternity man guarding the door in a few blows. Mike was not afraid of such untrained ordinary people, as long as they were not far away and could not be shot with guns. They came to the top floor of the Brotherhood nightclub, the 3rd floor, and the door of a luxuriously decorated room. Mike didn't know he would come here. It was all because of the boss behind him who said left, right, and up. Mike fought carefully all the way. The boss had a 25-cent coin in his hand, so Mike fought bravely and confidently. Fortunately, the gangsters were not far away from him and did not have the opportunity to shoot. Mike did not need Buddy to do anything. Mike had already dealt with it. Mike twisted the door handle and found it was locked. He looked back at Buddy. After getting Buddy's instructions, he kicked with his right foot. This wooden door, which looked quite beautiful, was broken by his kick. The dark yellow wood was directly torn off at the locked position, and the door snapped and hit the wall inside. Bang! Mike's pupils shrank. The moment the door was kicked open, a sturdy black man appeared behind the table, holding a Smith & Wesson M39 pistol. The moment he saw the man, he roared with a ferocious face, "How dare you touch the Brotherhood!" The dark muzzle burst into flames, and the bullet shot out. Mike's breathing stagnated, his pupils shrank, and he subconsciously rolled sideways to get away from the muzzle. Before he could act, Badi's hand crossed over his face and pinched the bullet with his index and middle fingers. The bullet's forward momentum stopped, and the trajectory of piercing the air stopped and dissipated. The bullet was flattened between Badi's fingers. "Do you want power?" Badi stopped the flattened finger in the air so that the sturdy black man who fired the gun could see it clearly. Mike suppressed the blood that was beating in fear, exhaled a breath of thrilling breath, and silently walked to the side, revealing Badi behind him. Leon was already stunned behind Badi. Is this catching a bullet with bare hands? Originally, Leon thought that Mike was the most powerful. He was tall and strong, and had a gun. He was just like Badi's bodyguard. Although Badi was not bad in stature, it was Mike who always took action. In addition, Badi had a calm and majestic temperament, like a leader in a high position. Who would have thought that Badi would reach out to catch the bullet and even crush the bullet head? It was simply a far-fetched story. He was so shocked that he was stunned and couldn't think straight. The sturdy black man's ferocious face paused for a moment. His eyes widened, as if he couldn't believe that someone could catch a bullet with his fingers. A little panic rose in his heart, and his face was ferocious and roared, "Performing magic in front of me." Bang 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 bang, fear drove his head, and 5 bullets shot out from the dark muzzle of the gun, piercing the air. Badi's index and middle fingers opened and closed, and the first bullet fell to the flesh of his fingers. Then he clamped the second bullet, and he opened his fingers again, and the second bullet fell down. He kept opening and closing, and the bullets were kept being clamped by him. When the sturdy black man's pistol clicked, and no bullets were fired, Badi's index and middle fingers held 6 bullets vertically. "Do you want power?" Badi asked again. He came here to recapture the Brotherhood and use it for his own benefit. He wanted to recapture the Brotherhood, and there was no need for too much violence. He didn't want to kill them, but the boss of the Brotherhood seemed to be wrong. The sturdy black man's face was horrible, and his eyes were full of madness. He threw away the Smith Wesson M39 pistol and leaned over to pull out a Uzi 9mm light submachine gun from under the table. "Fuck your mother." The sturdy black man had a crazy look on his face. When he saw Badi taking the bullet, he knew that he was not a good person. Those who could survive in the suicide slums were all crazy people. They had to be crazy to a certain extent to survive. He raised his Uzi 9mm light submachine gun and fired quickly. The fear in his heart was released loudly along with the gunshot. Badi's face turned cold, and he no longer wanted to regain him. He originally planned to come in quietly regain the Brotherhood for his own use, and then directly kill the leaders of several other gangs, let his regained men occupy the territory, and let this place belong to him. But the boss of this Brotherhood has ignored Badi's words twice. There will be no third time. The submachine gun was still spewing crazy flames, and the sturdy black man roared with a red face. Suddenly, the gunshot stopped. Badi threw the bullet in his hand, and the powerful force directly penetrated his heart. The heart area was already in tatters, the sternum was broken, and a lot of blood splashed on the wall behind him, which was shocking. A big hole was broken in the heart of the sturdy black man. Seeing the wall behind him, he fell to the ground with a hideous face, and the Uzi 9mm light submachine gun in his hand fell. When Leon saw this scene, his stomach acid rolled on the spot, and his mouth bulged like a hamster's mouth, feeling uncomfortable and wanting to vomit. "Leon, cut off his head," Badi said coldly, turned around and made way for Leon to see the death of the Brotherhood boss more clearly. "What?" Leon pressed his abdomen. His eyes were stimulated by the desire to vomit, and suddenly heard Badi's words, and for a moment, he couldn't believe it. "Cut off his head? Why?" Badi glanced at Leon indifferently. He didn't have so much time to slowly cultivate his confidence. He could only use violence and blood to catalyze his subordinates who feared him, and use blood to suppress them to make them fear and fear. Badi didn't care what they would become. As long as they could do the orders he gave, it was enough. His real subordinates would be made by himself, and these humans were just a transition. 1 minute later, "Mike, Leon hasn't cut his head yet. Kill him," Badi said coldly, not caring about this young man who had just been recruited. Mike nodded silently, glanced at Leon who was standing there in a daze, took out a sharp saber dagger from his waist, and threw it to him, then pulled out his Python revolver from his waist, pulled the hammer, and pointed it at Leon's temple. The saber fell to the ground, making a clang sound of iron and a muffled sound of the plastic handle falling to the ground. Leon's body was stiff, his hands and feet were cold, and the touch of the muzzle on his temple made him sweat all over his body instantly. He realized that $1,000 per US dollar was not easy to earn. The Brotherhood was founded by 3 brothers. It was said that they had a deep relationship and had blocked bullets for each other. He didn't know which one was in front of him now, but once you cut off his head, there would be no turning back. Leon's face was sweating profusely. He swallowed his saliva. Mike's gun made him feel like a thorn in his back. He said with difficulty, I will return the $1,000 to you." Badi rubbed his palms with his hands, glanced at him, and said calmly, "Leon, I'm very optimistic about you. I also need people under my command. How can a man be considered a man if he doesn't bleed?" "You have 40 seconds left," Badi said, then turned and left, walking towards the deep corridor. 37, 36, 35 Mike counted mercilessly. Leon's face was horrified. His whole body was soaked with sweat, clinging to his clothes. His hands and feet were shaking, and his eyes were sore that he wanted to cry. "Think about your brothers." Mike suddenly stopped counting and said, then started counting again. When he counted to 27, Leon's pupils shrank, and he gasped for air. The intensity of his inner struggle was no less than a magnitude 20 earthquake. After a while, when Mike counted to 10, his eyes suddenly widened, and he roared in fear. "Ah!" He rushed into the room with a knife. Mike put down the Python revolver and waited. When Leon came out with a head, he patted his bloody shoulder. "I, Mike, can judge people as accurately as I can judge women's bust and hips. Follow the boss and you will get something beyond your imagination." Mike consoled him, and followed Badi with Leon, who was breathing heavily and covered in blood. Chapter 67 Follow Your Heart. The Brotherhood was founded by 3 black brothers. Jet Li is the youngest among them, the most educated, and the most intelligent. From the beginning of their plan to rise in the slums, his strategies and plans were indispensable. Dealing with other gangs, trying hard to act fierce. If you want to mess with me, I will blow you up and die together to survive when other gangs want to beat them. The Brotherhood is the only gang that has no connection with the central city of the metropolis. With Jet Li's efforts, it has become a buffer point in the middle, under the wrangling and restraint of all parties, and with their cooperation, the Brotherhood has been able to preserve its existence in the slums. He is a black man, so dark that he can't be seen at night. The only feature is that he is a little thin and can be regarded as his relatively large, flashing eyes. This is a significant feature. It can be seen at a glance that he is a smart man, at least, a person who is good at thinking. When one of his men came to him and said that a strange noble person wearing white clothes who looked like a high-ranking person had entered Brothers nightclub, he immediately felt something was wrong. Describe their appearance in detail, Jet Li asked. The men in front of him carefully described Badi, Mike and Leon, a leader in white clothes who was high-ranking and powerful, a Russian man who looked like a bodyguard, and a young man who had not seen much of the world. It was a very strange combination. Jet Li had a bad feeling in his heart, and he didn't know where it came from. It might be that his thinking was disrupted by the sudden appearance of an abnormal person, and he felt something was wrong. Logically speaking, they didn't receive any distinguished guests today. Even if they did receive any distinguished guests, his eldest and second brothers would seriously discuss with him, and the final decision would also be made by him. This was the pattern that the three brothers had always followed, and had never changed. And his eldest brother was in the room on the third floor of the nightclub tonight, counting the bills, and preparing the amount of money to be distributed to his brothers. The more Jet Li thought about it, the more palpitations he felt. The three brothers were triplets, and there was a subtle telepathy between them. This trembling palpitation scared him. He quickly found his second brother, Meili. Meili was a deserter who killed his superior who discriminated against him. He happened to come out of the room and met Jet Li. I feel palpitations. Meili pressed his heart and said with an ugly face. Jet Li and Meili looked at each other, called many of the Brotherhood's men, and ran to the Brotherhood nightclub. When they arrived at the Brotherhood nightclub, the whole nightclub screamed in fear. A group of people rushed out of the door with terrified faces, squeezing the glass door so hard that it was about to burst. Several people accidentally fell and were trampled by the people behind them and never got up again. This situation only occurs when gangs suddenly fight and passers-by run around in panic. Jet Li and Meili felt that something was wrong. Meili was impulsive and wanted to rush up to the crowd immediately to see what was happening inside. You can't get in through the main entrance. Jet Li calmly scanned the area, grabbed his second brother, and entered the nightclub through a side door with fewer people. After shooting a few unlucky guys with a gun, they followed the men behind them and filed in. In a corner of the nightclub, Mike had just thrown the head of the fraternity boss on the stage, scaring everyone to scream in fear, and the dancers crawled off the stage with limp legs. The underground audience no longer had the excitement of watching the meat take advantage and screaming. The audience was almost hoarse with fear and rushed out of the nightclub. The boss of the fraternity was killed, which meant that the gang war had begun. In the past, these passers-by had died too many unjust deaths, so no one wanted to stay and watch the show. Badi jumped onto the stage. At the moment, when the head appeared on the stage, the lights had already turned white, so that the head could be seen more clearly. As a result, it was even more frightening to see it clearly. He looked at the crowd around him coldly. They were afraid of him like a tiger and would flee like a ghost. Leon, who was standing by, was shaking with trembling hands and feet. His face was covered with thick blood. He looked at the back of Badi with fear. On the stage, he looked like a majestic mountain. His windbreaker gave him an elegant and unrestrained aura, but his actions were terrifying. He killed people at will. Human life was worthless to him. He asked him to cut it off casually. Even now, when he thought about it, Leon's hands and feet were still shaking, and he couldn't move freely. Wipe the blood off your face, rookie. Mike picked up a triangular piece of cloth, which had a slight touch of body temperature and was red. He threw it on Leon's face. Leon didn't realize that the triangular piece of cloth was actually the dancer's underwear. He used it to wipe the blood off his face. He swallowed a large mouthful of nervous saliva and said tremblingly, "Is it necessary to do this?" Leon meant to ask him to cut off his head. "Necessary?" Mike sneered. "For you, maybe you need a reason. But for the boss, there may be a reason, or he wants you to mature early, or he just does it casually, or he is happy or unhappy, or he just wants you to fear him, or many more. Anyway, just follow your heart." Leon looked at Badi in the center of the stage, wearing a white windbreaker. He looked like an evil spirit, which was terrifying. Follow your heart. Isn't this just like a moody self-centered tyrant? Leon's voice trembled, his eyes lowered, and he dared not look at Badi with fear in his eyes. Mike shrugged. Maybe. Tyrant, or the boss would like this name. Everyone is here. Follow my actions, rookie. After Mike finished speaking, the crowd had almost fled, leaving behind several bodies that were trampled beyond recognition. The surroundings were in a mess, with scattered change, and clothes and underwear everywhere, and broken wine glasses. The strong smell of blood and cheap wine was turbid with sweat and other smells, which was extremely unpleasant. Two roars suddenly broke out. Sam. Seeing their eldest brother's leader at Badi's feet, Jetli and Melee trembled, and their anger exploded like a volcano. Their eyes were glaring, and their eyeballs were about to burst out. Their faces were distorted and frightening. Their clenched fists had nails directly inserted into their palms. The blue veins on their bodies protruded from the black skin, like a dragon swimming, which was terrifying. "I will kill you." Melee's eyes were red, and he pulled out a dagger from his waist and stepped onto the stage. Under the strong illumination of the white light, his black figure, holding a cold dagger, stabbed Badi directly. The dagger shone with a cold light, containing a murderous aura of rage. It was 3 centimeters away from Badi. Badi stood still. A green saber dagger stabbed in from the sky, firmly blocking the cold and angry dagger. "Calm down. Put the head back. There might still be a heartbeat." Chapter 68 Conquer. Mike took the initiative to step onto the stage. When he saw Mike angrily pulling out a dagger from his waist and rushing towards Badi, he had already taken action. He shook the green saber dagger that was covered with blood by Leon slightly, and then he protruded from Badi's side. The green saber held the handle of the dagger. The muscles in his hands bulged, and he exerted force on his waist, and he resisted the force of Michael's dagger. "Calm down. Take the head back. Maybe there is still a heartbeat." Mike sneered coldly, making Michael, who was already furious, roar like a beast, and glared at Badi. Badi looked at Michael with an indifferent expression, standing still. Of course, there is no way to hurt Badi with a dagger. Mike didn't need to take action, and Badi would be unharmed. But this is a matter of attitude. Mike saw it very clearly. Badi needed someone to deal with some things that didn't require his help. These things were within Mike's ability. Mike had better take the initiative to take action. Otherwise, what's the point of having you as his subordinate? Mike also knew that he should do things according to his ability. He might not be able to catch bullets with his bare hands, as such things were not something a human could do, but it was still easy for him to stop 1 or 2 ordinary people from attacking the boss with daggers. With a loud struggle, under the white light above, the 2 daggers slashed hard, and when they separated, a gap appeared on Melee's dagger. The angry Melee's eyes were wide open, and his dark face was full of hideous and twisted anger. If he wanted to kill Badi, he had to get past Mike first. "Ah!" Melee roared like a madman, like an angry hedgehog, with veins on his arms suddenly bulging, and he slashed at Mike with the dagger. Mike tightened the handle of the dagger with sticky blood in his hand. He narrowed his eyes and rushed towards Melee. The daggers collided and crossed for a moment. Mike used a force relieving technique to release the force on Melee's dagger and moved it aside. Mike's dagger spun a circle in his hand and returned to his palm. He slashed downwards and cut the aorta in Melee's wrist. Blood gushed out and dyed the stage red. Mike kicked Melee's knee, bending his knee and half kneeling on the ground. He once again pulled the other hand of the angry Melee behind his back and tightly restrained his arm. The dagger was placed across Melee's neck. He was an experienced mercenary who had fought many battles. It was easy for him to deal with a gangster boss who was a bit reckless and lost his composure. In just 2 or 3 seconds, Melee, the second gangster of the Brotherhood, was controlled by Mike. The aorta in his wrist was cut, and blood gushed out. but he still held the dagger in his hand. Finally, Mike kicked Michael's dagger with his foot. His palm was too weak to hold the dagger, and the dagger flew off the stage, scratching the ground, and fell in front of Jet Li's feet. "Stop!" Jet Li roared loudly, his eyes trembling, and his heart was filled with fear and anxiety. The eldest brother, who had always led them in the fight, was left with only a head on the stage. The second brother's artery was cut, and blood flowed like a column. The blood was everywhere, stimulating everyone's olfactory nerves. Under the stage, the gang members of the Brotherhood who surrounded the stage were also panicked, and their breathing tightened. They held a number of different Thompson guns, Uzi 9mm light submachine guns, and a large number of pistols tightly. The firepower was already very strong for ordinary police stations. Even the police station in the suicide slums did not want to provoke this kind of gangsters. Because of this, they were not strong enough to fight. "Let him go. Are you looking for death? If Mei Li dies, I want you all to be buried with him." Jet Li's eyes were red with anger. He roared angrily at his second brother's lips, which had turned white due to too much blood loss. The brothers under the stage also cooperated with him, pointing their guns at the stage. The three brothers had a deep relationship. They rose from the suicide slums and went through wind and rain and gunfire. They were triplets who understood each other. Their deep feelings were well known. Once someone hurt Jet Li, his eldest and second brothers went to the other person's home to kill them in revenge. They didn't care about what happened to others, but they did have a deep relationship that could be sacrificed for themselves. "Very good, kill him." Badi's cold voice came from behind Mike. He originally just planned to quietly find the boss of the Brotherhood and ask him to surrender and become his subordinate. But he didn't expect that the boss of the Brotherhood would pull out a gun and shoot him, as if he had mad cow disease. In this case, Badi didn't want to take him in. Without the leader of the Brotherhood, it would be a little troublesome to rule the members of the Brotherhood, but it wouldn't be that difficult. Badi just wanted to save some effort. If he had to spend more effort now, he would just kill all the leaders and take them back. Mike didn't hesitate at all. He swung the green saber in his hand and cut Mei Li's neck. He kicked him from behind and kicked the bleeding Mei Li off the stage. The blood splattered and the blood stains were shocking. After doing all this, Mike quickly rolled on the stage and rolled to a corner of the stage with a nimble figure. He curled up and hid under the stage and also knocked Li into the ground. Badi didn't blame Mike for running so fast. Instead, he secretly praised this subordinate for being good. He did his job, and did his job well within his ability. That was enough. As for the rest, he couldn't block bullets, so it would be stupid to stay on the stage. Melee. Gunshots rang out in quick succession, accompanied by Jet Li's screams of terror. Jet Li caught his second brother with his teeth bared, blood splattering all over him. Melee stared at his beloved brother, blood gurgling from his throat. His pale mouth moved, his lips trembling as he tried to say something, but because his vocal cords were torn, he couldn't say anything, and his lips kept trembling. Jet Li's face was filled with tears. He was heartbroken, staring closely at Melee, who wanted to speak, his tearful cheeks pressed against his face. He sobbed and said, "I know what you want to say, Melee, Melee, I'm a smart kid. A smart kid." Hearing that Jet Li understood what he meant, Melee breathed a sigh of relief. His whole body softened, and he died with convulsions. Jet Li howled and cried, his teeth gnashed, and there was deep hatred in his eyes that could not be resolved. At this time, the gunshots stopped. The turbid smoke rose, shocking everyone's heart. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open, at a loss, their hearts throbbing and choking, as if they were about to suffocate. Badi's right hand was full of brass bullets, and he picked up a bullet with his hand. His fingers shot out, piercing through the air, and blowing off a person's head. "From today on, I'm your boss. Is there anyone who doesn't obey?" Badi glanced at the people present. A black man wanted to escape, because he was too frightened. He held a bullet, and shot it out again. His body was blown away 7 or 8 meters, and his head was rotten into a ball. Fear suddenly arose in the hearts of the people, and someone else shot at Badi in disbelief, and was hit by a bullet from Badi, sending him to the west. The remaining people had cold hands and feet. Seeing the full bullets in Badi's hand, they swallowed a mouthful of horrified saliva, dropped the gun in their hands, knelt on the ground, and raised their hands high. "I obey. I obey. You will be the boss from now on. Boss. Badi nodded, very satisfied. The bullet in his hand fell on the stage. Only one bullet remained on his finger, pointing at Jet Li. Jet Li suddenly knelt down on his knees, kowtowed to Badi, and shouted in fear, "Don't kill me, I'm the third boss of the Brotherhood. I can help you quickly lead the Brotherhood and do anything for you." He lowered his head, his face twisted and hideous, his eyes full of hatred and resentment. His head was very low. Pong. This smart third boss of the Brotherhood, who made suggestions and laid the foundation of the Brotherhood, eventually died at the hands of Badi. I don't need a Gaugian. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Bamulodi. It took Badi 2 days to completely rule the neighborhoods that were originally occupied by the Brotherhood. He gathered all the Brotherhood members, killed the 2 leading rebels, and then improved their welfare, using carrots in one hand and sticks in the other. If they didn't obey, they would be killed, and if they obeyed, they would get more money than before. Few people in the suicide slums were really willing to live here, because it was too bad. Gang fights often occurred. Sometimes after night, no one knew which bastard died in the stinking pit, and the police silently ordered people to take the body to burn it. They couldn't find the murderer at all, and they didn't want to find it. There was no sense of security here, and everyone lived in fear. Badi's rule even brought a bit of a hot morning and evening atmosphere to these neighborhoods, because in front of everyone, new rules were established. The original 70% to 30% split for women was changed to 50% to 50%, so that those who lived at the bottom and sold their bodies could live a little better than before. The sale of organs and the trafficking of children were abolished. For the high protection fees that are already on the verge of despair, it is even possible to pay more than 3 times a day in a month. A clear amount is stipulated, and once a month, anyone who collects it indiscriminately will have his hand chopped off. There are also many rules to restrain gang members. This rule is extremely harsh for those gang members who are unwilling to abide by the rules. It is completely a kind of tyranny. It is not that there are no other people who question it, because everyone feels constrained by this. Is this still a gang? This is not realistic. We have always been like this. This is not okay. Usually they exploit people as they want, and there are also cases of collecting protection fees from different people several times a day. When passing by a store, you can just go in and take something without paying. Now they are asking for money? Are we sure it is the underworld? Is it a gang? Is this still a slum? They don't care about the resentment of ordinary people at all. Now that the new boss has come on stage and done this, they might as well be good boys. I like my subordinates to have rules. I'm the only one who can do whatever they want. Several people had opinions on the spot. The people who complained were crushed by Badi's head, and the blood splashed onto white clothes, like a demon. No one dared to oppose him again. Badi also improved their interests a lot. Compared with these, it is also good to abide by the rules. At least it is safe, isn't it? No one dared to speak again. Mike looked at his boss's back in shock. From Badi's rules for the neighborhood, he realized for the first time the ambition of this man. This is to create a country. He will give these people at the bottom of society a living without hesitation. Where he wants to rule, the people live peacefully. Where he wants to rule, the people can have enough food and clothing. Where he wants to rule, the people can have a sense of belonging. Where he wants to rule, the people can be loyal. Ordinary people are kept in captivity like sheep by him. Even if they are kept in captivity, they must be convinced and grateful to him. He wants to stand high on the throne, looking down on everything, dominating the life and death of life. He has the ability to give survival to those who obey him, and those who disobey will not have a good end. He just wants to be a tyrant who can do whatever he wants in the world. In this world, only he is qualified to stand in the clouds and do whatever he wants. Mike never felt that Badi had such a convincing charm. On the way to the metropolis, he asked Badi about his power, what he wanted to do, and whether he wanted to recruit subordinates. He didn't think he could withstand nuclear bombs, and he didn't think he could conquer the earth and unify the earth. But now, he feels that he has enough cruelty and brutality under the white windbreaker, and he also has enough ability and intelligence. He never cares about the life and death of others. He is already a ruthless and tyrannical king. Mike's heart suddenly surged with blood, and he wanted to follow the white back and step on this planet so that he could become the master of this planet and dominate everything. Everything is for Bamulodi. For Bamulodi. In the Brotherhood nightclub, all the original Brotherhood members were there. The place had been cleaned up, like a drinking party. Everyone was nervous and cold. Badi was challenging their fears every moment, and killing them at will, making them uneasy. The name of the Brotherhood gang has disappeared. They are now Bamulodi. Badi did not change the gang name, but just used his own name. For Bamulodi. Mike raised the wine glass in his hand, his face solemn, and his throat emitted infinite heat. The solemn and hot feeling was like a belief, shouting out a belief. Leon was beside him, seeing Mike holding the wine glass high. Subconsciously, he wanted to learn, and pulled the muscles of his arm hard, clenched his fist, and raised his right hand suddenly. For Bamulodi. Leon said. His voice was not loud, but in this environment of fear and silence of more than 100 people, the voice was a little small, but very clear. He was trembling in his heart. He had never been so crazy in front of more than 100 people, breaking through himself and attracting attention. Just like he cut off the head. Under the gaze of many people, his heart gradually became hot. It burned up little by little. The burning heat spreading from his heart flowed through his blood throughout his body, making him excited and hot. His hair stood up, goosebumps aroused, and he was so excited that he couldn't control himself. Being watched by others, being looked at by others, letting the world's eyes be on him. This feeling! Exclamation mark. It's so good! Exclamation mark. For Bamulodi. He roared loudly, his face flushed. Leon punched his fist to the sky again, his burning body trembling, his face excited, and his eyes were hot. He belongs to Bamulodi. Leon's excitement ignited his companions. They had heard 2 days ago that Leon followed Bamulodi into the headquarters of the Brotherhood, killed the 3 brothers of the Brotherhood, and then ruled this neighborhood. This is like a legend, and he created a legend. For Bamulodi. Leon's friends raised their fists in unison, punched the sky, and shouted with red faces. They also want to do great things. Young people should not be unknown! Exclamation mark. This world should belong to them. Belong to the young. The old order is gone, and we will create a new world. Leon and his friends were almost pounding their fists to the sky, as if they were going to break the suicide slum, break this poverty, and break this desperate place. For Bamulodi. Boiling is contagious. Burning is contagious. Madness is contagious. Faith is contagious. The original members of the Brotherhood looked at each other in bewilderment, and slowly, people here raised their right fists and punched the sky. For Bamulodi. From the first few people, fists gradually rose one after another, until everyone raised their fists, roaring with red faces. As if it had become a demon, like a virus. It was contagious, and this name brought everyone together crazily. For Bamulodi. Huge waves of sound gathered beside Badi. One by one, they were driven up, and the roaring slogans gathered everything they had. The crazy and hot temperature burned up, and everyone stared at Badi with fiery eyes, roared hoarsely, trembling with excitement, and the gathered sound aroused goosebumps for everyone. Badi's stature was like a pillar of heaven, his majestic figure standing tall amidst the waves of sound. Ha 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 ha. He suddenly laughed, grinning wildly, with a faint red light flickering in his eyes. This feeling was so good. The whole world revolves around you, roaring around you. He held up his majestic body, his smile suddenly stopped, and he punched the sky with his right hand. The punch exploded the air, and the airflow fluctuated wildly in all directions. The eyes of the people around him became even more fiery and crazy, and they all punched the sky, their blood boiling. They were so excited that they were shaking all over, and they roared with all their strength. For Bamulodi. Chapter 70 Domination. Underground Exchange. Warehouse. Do you know Bamulodi? Everyone knows. A group of guys holding submachine guns, shouting crazily for Bamulodi, and shooting wildly. Are these guys crazy? Oh my god, this is crazy. In the past 2 weeks, they have wiped out the City Domination Society, the 99, the Gambino Mafia branch, and the Brotherhood. The motorcycle gang's system factory was occupied by them, and the weapons manufacturing department of Satan Hell was occupied. I heard that the Roseblood bitches took the initiative to stick to it happily. The First Blood, Jack Gang, Dark Leader, Secret Organization, Cutting Hands, Blue Dragon Gang, Giant Gang, Mafia, Vietnam Gang, Iron Blood Battle Flag, Angel Gang, Hell Club, 13 Covenants, all the foreign forces that set up branch liaison offices here were all wiped out. They spread the word that no other gang liaison points can be stationed here without their permission. Drug manufacturing, weapon manufacturing, lending, protection fees, prostitution, all belong to him. Suck. This is too crazy and too exciting. This is going against the whole world. Their boss is really too crazy. How can he withstand the counterattack of so many forces? You know, there are killer organizations among those who have been defeated. They are finished. It's just a flash in the pan. They will be killed soon. The suicide slums have been maintained like this by the central city of Metropolis from the beginning. No one can change it. No one can face the blow of the entire Metropolis at the same time. Not necessarily. I heard that the boss of Bamulodi is very powerful. He is invulnerable to swords and guns, his body is as hard as steel, and his strength is infinite. He rushed into the headquarters of the City Domination Society, the 99, the Gambino Mafia branch, and the Brotherhood. He crushed the bosses of each gang to death in front of his men, and then recaptured his men. Yes, I heard that the Gambino Mafia couldn't kill him even with a rocket launcher. He walked out in the flames of the explosion, and crushed their boss to death. The boss of the City Domination Society escaped in a helicopter. Do you know what happened? The boss of Bamulodi stepped out of a huge pit, flew over a dozen stories high, and kicked a helicopter to pieces in the air. The whole suicide slum saw the flames of the helicopter exploding in the sky. He landed on a tall building. Under the full moon, his white figure was like a god descending, overlooking the world. That night, the whole suicide slum was boiling with excitement, roaring for Bamulodi. The whole suicide slum was crazy. Everyone was shouting for Bamulodi. He has conquered the suicide slum. The only thing missing is, here. Hey, don't joke. No one can touch the underground trade fair. The underground trade fair represents the upper nobles of the metropolis, the upper class, the spires of the metropolis, the government, the police station. How dare he attack here? Why not? Because, boom. Exclamation mark. Boom, boom boom. Huge explosions suddenly sounded one after another. The buildings on the surface of the underground exchange became ruins in an instant. Black smoke and flames rose up. People with guns came from all directions, like a beehive. For Bamulodi, in the early morning, the sky was bright and the sky was gradually spreading from the horizon. In a square in the suicide slum, an old tower was erected in the center. The Tower of Babylon was one of the few imitation landscape buildings in the suicide slum. Badi sat on the balcony at the top of the Tower of Babylon. His windbreaker was blown by the wind behind him. The wind and sand rolled into a small tornado and then dissipated. Hum. He was in a good mood, with a smile on his lips, humming a happy tune, and smiling at the flames of the underground exchange in the distance, the sound of the fierce eruption of fire from the guns, and the roar of for Bamulodi. His fingers rose and fell, and his fingertips clicked rhythmically on the long corroded balcony. There were already many holes on the stone surface that looked like they were corroded by water droplets. The gunfire from the underground exchange died down soon after. The early morning gradually faded. A ray of golden light leaped from the horizon, dyeing the clouds golden, and then thousands of warm rays of light pierced out, filling the entire sky with light. The white clouds were dyed golden. When the first ray of sunlight shone into Bati's eyes, his voice paused. The power of the sunlight was transmitted from his skin and he clearly felt that the cells were sucking breast milk, enjoying and absorbing the sun. Badi stood up, his mouth curved into a larger arc, his hands clenched tightly into fists, and his chest was held high. There was a little burning red deep in his pupils, and it began to itch, very itchy, so itchy that it made people want to pop their eyeballs out. The tear glands couldn't help but let tears flow out. But the next moment they evaporated and turned into mist. There were two red lights in the hazy and terrifying red. In the arc of his mouth, his teeth were clenched tightly. The area around Badi's eyes seemed to be burned by a branding iron, red, and the blue veins were reflected and turned red. Every cell in the body is like a river from a spring, flowing out energy, passing through every cell, fiber, vein, muscle, neural network, all carrying energy. The energy gathered into a river, rushing towards his eyes, rushing to the retina, like countless electric current networks converging to the integrated circuit board. Finally, his eyes turned completely red and burned, and the retina burned so much that it hurt. He raised his head to the sky. Footsteps were heard on the ground one after another, and members of Bamulodi came from all directions, densely packed, like all ants were out, and their figures emerged in the streets and alleys. The Black Torrent marched neatly towards the Tower of Babylon, raised their heads, and looked up at the white figure under the golden light of the sun, with fire in their eyes. Then, they saw a shocking scene. Badi raised his chest and head, the airflow blew his white windbreaker, and made it rustle, and his body seemed to break through the sky. Ah! Badi roared, the heat burning his nerves. His eyes were red, and the red eyes bang. From his eyes, two red hot lines shot out, rushing to the sky. The two red hot lines tore through the sky and the sky. This scene lasted for half a minute before it stopped. The hot lines quickly disappeared, and were taken back by him. Badi closed his eyes, and when he opened his eyes, he looked down at the entire suicide slum. The faces of the Bamulodi members below were crazy and hot, and they already regarded him as a god. Badi's smile was unusually warm. The sun dyed him into a god. The wind blew his hair, and his windbreaker fluttered. Chapter 71 Sand Lane. In a villa, the light is warm. In front of the floor-to-ceiling glass window stands a lieutenant general who is only about 30 years old, with a strong figure and a serious expression. Sam Ryan gently shakes the vodka in the glass and looks out the window at the dark night. Vodka actually has no smell. The sweetness and aroma, after drinking it, are as sweet as water and as passionate as fire. It is very refreshing and stimulating. People who are not used to it will get goosebumps, but if you savor it slowly, you will find that this wine is very fragrant and sweet. Sam Ryan took a sip gently, and the stimulating feeling flowing through his throat made him squint. He stood straight, like a standard soldier, and looked out the window silently, with the momentum of a high position. Sam Ryan is strong, and has a tough face. He is the youngest general and the most promising general. The family behind him, and his own ability have made considerable contributions in the Vietnam War and the Cold War with the Soviet Union. If there were no admiral positions now, he would be fully qualified to be promoted to admiral. The promotion of general strictly abides by the principle of one out, one in. There must be a vacant general position, and the president must nominate, and the selection committee and the Senate must approve it, before he can be promoted. Therefore, he needs to wait for an admiral to step down. General Ryan. General Vic has secretly deployed elite troops in the suburbs. An adjutant came into the room, saluted with his back straight, and reported the business. Sam Ryan's narrowed eyes flashed with brilliance. Target. After our confirmation, the leader of the Bamulodi gang in the suicide slums is indeed the biological warrior sample that General Vic said escaped from the research institute, the only successful sample in the series. He did not hide his whereabouts. He created the Bamulodi gang in the suicide slums of the metropolis, and unified the gangster environment of the suicide slums. According to observation, he is indeed as General Vic provided to the military. He has great strength and an invulnerable body. In addition, he can jump more than 40 meters high, and kicked a helicopter to pieces a week ago. 2 days ago, in the Babylon Tower and the suicide slums, his eyes emitted red rays. Preliminary detection shows that this is a heat-focused infrared laser beam with extremely high temperature. The adjutant reported. Sam Ryan's breathing slowed down slightly, and there was a little shock in his eyes. It was even stronger than described in the information. A jump of more than 40 meters. One floor is about 3 meters, and if it is 4 meters, it can jump over 10 floors in one jump, and it is invulnerable to swords and guns, with a body like steel and eyes that can shoot lasers. He had read the information provided by General Vic a long time ago, and there was no such powerful person as Badi. Since the explosion of the missile at the military base, General Vic has provided a lot of biological information and did not reveal Badi's identity as an alien, but only compiled a successful biological experiment sample. The military has always known that General Vic intends to create a super soldier to fight in the Cold War with the Soviet Union, so it is not surprising that such an accidental success was successful. After the super soldier was created, he was able to master hacking technology immediately. He hacked the entire military base and let the missile bomb the military base and pin down other military bases for support. Destroyed the entire underground research institute. The genetic samples and biological data were all destroyed. Not a single bit was left. Sam Ryan frowned. He knew General Vic better than others and had more information and studied him more deeply. No matter how you look at it, this does not seem to be created by General Vic. Even Colonel Waleev, who was beside General Vic, was just an alien-chipped biological warrior that Area 51 had worked hard to research and test. Could General Vic have researched a biological warrior that was more powerful than Waleev? Sam Ryan didn't believe it. So, where did he come from? Where did this monster come from? Search for General Vic's whereabouts in the past 2 years. I want to know where he has been. I want to know when he went to that military base very hard. Sam Ryan narrowed his eyes and ordered. His mind was slightly moved. He was the most eye-catching lieutenant general. If no general stepped down for the time being, he would have to stay in the position of lieutenant general until they were old and he retired. This was too slow. Now, this was an opportunity. Admiral Vic was in trouble. The biological data he provided temporarily appeased the military personnel, but nearly 7,000 soldiers had died, 3,000 soldiers were seriously injured, and more than 1,000 were disabled. It was just that it was temporarily suppressed, and the focus was turned to the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Once the situation rebounds, General Vic's position as a general will be lost, absolutely lost. The youngest general in the United States. The youngest general in the United States. The youngest general in the United States. If the position is vacant, he will be the youngest general and will basically be remembered in history. In the future, every American who talks about generals will know that there is a youngest general who is only in his 30s and has sat at the top of the military and political positions. This temptation is simply very tempting. Sam Ryan's heart was slightly hot, and he was itching in his heart. The desire for power was born in his head. Especially above the general, there is the position of 5-star general, which is equivalent to marshal. This is a star-level general that is only awarded in wartime. It coincides with the current fierce Cold War with the Soviet Union. If he can be promoted to general, become a 5-star general, and defeat the Soviet Union, then he will truly be remembered forever in the milestone of American history. This is simply unprecedented, and his great achievements can be printed on US dollars. Sam Ryan's eyes calmed down from the desire, and he exhaled lightly, suppressing his desire. It was impossible to become a 5-star general, and it was impossible to print his head on the US dollar. These were all fantasies. But to become an admiral, you must be strict, and take a few steps in advance. Prepare the car, go to Vic's place. Sam Ryan walked down the villa lightly, passed by his daughter's room, opened the door lightly, looked at his sleeping daughter, put her legs, that kicked off the quilt into the quilt, covered her with the quilt, and kissed her forehead lightly. As a result, Louise's little face wrinkled, and she turned over in dissatisfaction in her sleep. Obviously, her father's kiss made her sleep restless. Sam Ryan couldn't help but snickering, not like a high-ranking general at all, looking at his daughter and laughing. After watching for a while, he tiptoed and went out. He bent down and closed the door lightly. After a cautious click, a door separated them, and his lumbar spine suddenly straightened. It was the stern Lieutenant General Sam Ryan. Chapter 72 Breakup. At night, in the dark night, the sky was clear and full of stars. An off-road military vehicle drove out of the bustling metropolis and came to a remote southern suburb. This was General Vic's deployment point, where the latest laser strike weapons, the subsonic force field targeting Badi's body frequency, and high-powered ground-to-ground missiles were deployed. As he approached this place, Sam Ryan's originally calm face gradually became horrified, and in the end, even people like him who had seen war were horrified, and his pupils shrank in shock. What did he see? A hideous monster, with a tumor protruding from the body, and a thick ringworm-like body surface with protruding bones, as if in the process of evolution, the bones of the body were broken tyrannically, and then the cells grew, and protruded the bones to the surface of the body. Just seeing it from a distance was terrifying. How could there be such a monster? When the car got closer, Sam Ryan's pupils shrank tightly. The monster was almost 6 meters tall. Just by looking at it nearby, he could feel the ferocious pressure coming from afar. His breathing stagnated. The monster was in a huge steel cage. Each steel was as thick as an adult's arm, but the steel seemed indestructible. Sam Ryan didn't feel a bit of security. The monster just glanced at him coldly. He felt like he was electrocuted from head to toe, and goosebumps rose up in his body. Sam Ryan acted decisively. With a serious face, he found General Vic's wartime tent and scolded him. "Vic, what are you doing?" It was obvious that this monster was created by Vic again, and he didn't report it to the military, so he seemed very surprised. Vic was always too detached from the US military and acted on his own. Whether it was the massacre of villages in Vietnam or the missile explosion at the military base, he was too self-centered. General Vic was sitting in a chair calmly, calculating and planning on a makeshift desk. When he saw Sam Ryan coming in to question him, he got a little angry. He had no good feelings towards this guy, who was about to be promoted to general, because if nothing unexpected happened, he would be the one to step down and make way for him. "Lieutenant General Ryan, Lieutenant General, where is your salute to your superior?" General Vic's face was gloomy. He stood up from his chair, pushed the chair back, supported his hands on the table, and shouted coldly. Sam Ryan restrained his anger, put his feet together, and saluted General Vic. Then he said in an emotionless tone, "General Vic, you need to report to the military, and you came here to deploy elite troops and powerful strike weapons. May I ask, what do you want to do?" At the end, Sam Ryan burst out of his mouth with a sonorous word, questioning bluntly. General Vic's face was gloomy and angry. He said in a calm and cold tone, "I will naturally explain to the military. Lieutenant General Ryan, you are now Lieutenant General. You have no right to control me, and no qualifications to question me. Now, get out." General Vic's finger almost poked Sam Ryan's chest, and his anger was overflowing. Sam Ryan did not move. He looked stern, and shouted in a serious tone, "What is he, General Vic? What is Badi? He is not an experimental subject created by you." Sam Ryan stared at General Vic's pupils. When he saw General Vic's ugly face and the contraction of his pupils, he was sure that this was definitely not a biological experimental subject created by General Vic. As long as he could find out the origin of Badi, he would be able to overthrow General Vic. General Vic's situation was on the verge of despair. "Get out. That's mine." General Vic was furious, breathing heavily, and staring at Sam Ryan. He obviously knew that he was in a very difficult situation. Only by catching Badi, regardless of life or death, and continuing his research, could he stand firm, instead of a lieutenant general daring to scold him. This simply made him tremble with anger. Is a lieutenant general qualified to scold him? Sam Ryan took a deep look at General Vic, turned around and stepped out of the temporary combat tent. When he stepped out of the tent, a tall man wearing a black mesh bulletproof combat uniform and a black eye mask on his right eye passed by him and entered the temporary combat tent. Sam Ryan paused, his face motionless, but his heart was already in turmoil. That was Slade Wilson, a colonel who had been listed as dead, and he was actually resurrected. Seeing him here, when Slade entered the temporary combat tent, he saw General Vic pressing the tabletop with his hands until his knuckles turned white. His eyes flashed with ferocity. He looked up at Slade and said fiercely, "Slade, kill Sam Lane. He wants to bring me down too badly." Slade crossed his hands in front of his chest, looked at General Vic coldly with his one eye, and said, "Vic, I won't work for you anymore, and be your dog." General Vic growled deeply in his throat, "You dare to betray me? This is not a betrayal. I've done enough for you, even at the cost of my own life. That alien is right. Without your restraint, he would never be able to get out of the underground research institute. I will not let him get out. However, the reason he can get out is because you are above my head. I need to consider your mood so that he can use it. Only when I'm free can I give full play to my talents." Slade stared at the fierce General Vic. Under the soft light, the two officially broke up. General Vic's hands on the table were clenched into fists. He was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot. He felt that the whole world was going to betray him. The military kept putting pressure on him. Sam Lane wanted to take his place. Jenny turned into a monster and refused to continue making the strengthening potion. Now, his most loyal lackey Slade was going to betray him. You should know that if I want to leave here, no one can stop me. I'm now stronger than Badi. Slade said, I won't let you put me in a cage like you did to Jenny. She volunteered to be in the cage. That woman is getting stronger, taller, and destroying her mind every moment. General Vic said angrily, do you think I'm treating you cruelly and ruthlessly? Slade sneered coldly and turned to walk out of the temporary tent. The purpose of my staying here is to find out the location of Badi. I will solve everything. It depends on whether he, the alien, is stronger or me. You can send someone to pick up the body. Chapter 73 Control. Badi slightly opened his eyes. The sun spread and climbed up half of his body. The energy absorbed by his skin made him wake up from the brain. Every cell was running again, like the morning dew mint awakening, stimulating the nerve center, making people wake up. Opening the French glass window, the sun and the fresh dew mist fell on his body skin, refreshing and comfortable, just like a touch of coolness in summer. The pores of the skin felt a cool and refreshing breath. This is the best place in the suicide slums, the place created by the underground exchange and the enjoyment. Even if the rich and nobles pass by such a place, they have to create a comfortable and luxurious house for themselves. Last night, he and the entire 675 members of Bamulodi celebrated the unification of the suicide slums. A female killer suddenly appeared at his most relaxed moment and wanted to assassinate him. He slapped her and fainted. This was the 13th assassination in the month since he ruled the suicide slums. He had activated his heat vision a few days ago, and he tried to efficiently use and control the energy stored in the cytoplasm of his body. Although he could control his power very well, he was still not satisfied. Clark can give birth to a child in the comics, which means he can control the subtleties. This kind of control is almost like controlling every cell. How can he control it? Badi squinted his eyes, deeply feeling the threat of Clark in the future. He only had the power to pull the earth, but he could control himself to drink coffee from a porcelain cup without breaking the cup. This kind of control was powerful enough to be terrifying. Is it because he grew naturally and has unlimited potential? Or did he use kryptonite to weaken his power and create a human with Louis? Or is it really the code of life? Question mark? It records all the Kryptonian genes and helps him control his body? Or did he have the subtle and free control of his body from the beginning? Badi frowned and muttered to himself. After a while, he turned his head and looked out the French window, the central city of the metropolis in the distance. His farsightedness and perspective allowed him to see the city waking up in the morning. Under the sun, the metropolis was glittering and prosperous. The tall buildings were erected, and the glass on the surface reflected the sunlight, warming the whole city. The bustling flow of people and vehicles was endless, full of life and vitality. Perspective and farsightedness gradually retracted from the tall buildings, and the sight shrank back, like a train going backwards, returning to the vision of ordinary people. He raised his head and looked at the sun, with a smile on his lips. Next, it was to truly conquer the metropolis. While conquering the metropolis, Badi had also sent people to the small town of Nevada to monitor the Ken couple and the farm. Ring ring, he rang the service bell and asked someone to deal with the body. A new subordinate brought him food. She was the boss of the Rose Blood that Badi had recovered. There were few people with conscience in the suicide slums. She provided protection for many women under her command. She was not short of means and eyes. She was a powerful woman. Badi calmly sat down at the table to eat breakfast under her greedy gaze. I really want to go to the central city of Metropolis with you. She would not refuse this man who could provide protection for her sisters, but only wanted to get closer. Not yet, you will die. Badi took a bite of bacon and said calmly. The beautiful woman crossed her hands on her chest and said unhappily, my boss, I can understand that you dislike me for being dirty. After the mature woman finished speaking, her expression inevitably dimmed a little. Badi did not respond, but paused with the knife and fork in his hand. No one is as dirty as my heart. He sighed in his heart and suddenly thought of Jenny. She should survive. The atmosphere became silent. After a while, Badi said with a smile, "You don't want your sisters to live in the slums all their lives. I will set up many companies in Metropolis and need you to be excellent public relations." Finally, Badi added another sentence, which made the mature woman happy and cheerful. Badi smiled, knowing that the mature woman would get things done. Since he unified the suicide slums, he has smiled a lot more. Sometimes he was smiling while crushing people's heads. Sometimes he was facing the sun, and sometimes he was smiling while his subordinates treated him like a god and looked down on them. After Badi finished breakfast, she said, "Lionel Luthor's son wants to see you." Badi raised his eyebrows. He had never deliberately looked for Lex Luthor, nor had he given him any information, and he had not even taken any action to recover him. He might be a rich man in the future, but for Badi now, it was really meaningless. In terms of wisdom, Badi's awakened Kryptonian brain, no matter how much calculation and scheming he had, was far ahead of him. Whether in science or combat, Badi had enough technology to learn endlessly. In the future, when he made up for his genetic defects, he would only be more powerful and there would be no need to worry about him. He picked up a cup of warm hot cocoa, and the bitter and sweet chocolate aroma flowed into his throat. He let go of his feelings, tried his best to let the taste flow smoothly on his tongue, and closed his eyes in enjoyment. Let him in. Chapter 74 Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor stood in front of the door anxiously. Through what he had seen and heard in the suicide slums in the past few days, the series of rules for improving the slums, and the rumors of his brutality and tyranny, Lex Luthor believed that the time for him to change his fate had come. He would not stay in the suicide slums for the rest of his life. He hated this place and hated it. Even though Badi had improved it, and it had rules, he still had no good feelings for it. He pinched the recorder in the pocket of his black sweater, took a deep breath, stabilized his nervousness, opened the door, and stepped in. As soon as he entered, Badi looked like a god and a demon under the sunlight. The shadow of half of his body seemed like a demon, which made his body stiffen a little unconsciously. This was a murderer, a tyrant, who could easily kill anyone, and could also use the madness of the suicide slums to shape himself into a god, so that the entire suicide slums almost believed in him and flattered him. Lex Luthor closed the door and walked to the sofa opposite Badi. He didn't sit down, and he couldn't sit down. Once a gang member sat down in front of him, he threw him dozens of meters away and crushed him to death. Badi was a stickler for rules. Behave yourself in front of him. He just wanted to have the right to establish and break rules, and not allow others to mess around. Lex Luthor stood with a tense and stiff body, like a child who made a mistake. He stiffened his body, but raised his head stubbornly, and looked at Badi. He was only a 13-year-old boy now. Badi drank the hot cocoa in one gulp. The warm chocolate taste flowed down his throat comfortably. He glanced at Lex Luthor and said, "What's the matter?" Lex Luthor took a deep breath, and his stiff body trembled. If he didn't do well, he would be crushed to death by the angry Badi. But according to his own psychological speculation about his behavior, he was in a period of lack of talent, and there was still a 90% chance that he could succeed. He had done a lot of homework and observed Badi. He thought he could understand and grasp part of Badi's psychology. Lex Luthor said secretly in his heart, calmed his heart that had been constantly beating, and said with gritted teeth, "I want to join Bamulodi." "Okay." Badi agreed without any refusal, put down the hot cocoa, and looked at this young version of Lex Luthor with a smile. Lex Luthor was stunned. This was too simple. He thought of many backup plans, showing his intelligence and ability, his scheming and wisdom, helping him manage the suicide slums, persuading him, long-term future plans, long-term plans for Bamulodi, how to occupy Metropolis, and make Metropolis become Bamulodi. He had made certain plans. Now, before he could show his value, he didn't expect Badi to agree to his joining at once, which made him stunned. He moved his lips and wanted to ask why. In the end, he didn't ask it out loud because he felt that he had achieved his goal, so he shouldn't ask too many questions in front of Badi. This is the way a smart person would do it. Bati's eyes showed admiration, and then he answered his doubts. The recorder in your pocket recorded the meeting of Bamulodi, the meeting about the life of the police chief of the suicide slums. Of course, the police chief has been burned to ashes, and there are also recordings of killing 36 people. Lex Luthor's body trembled, and his pupils shrank in shock. Discovered. This is your way of showing your intelligence. I appreciate it. In addition, the documents you will send out in 2 hours at the post office, which contain the entire evidence of Bamulodi's crimes, have been intercepted. Bati laughed. Do you want to use this as a token of allegiance? One sigh. Bamulodi, don't accept you. You will take it to the upper family of Metropolis, to show your value and escape from the suicide slums. Lex Luthor's body began to tremble, and uncontrollable fear rose from his heart. Dense sweat broke out on his forehead. He lowered his pupils and shrank, not daring to look at Bati. Also, in order to prevent any accidents, let your friend take another piece of information and leave the slums. Don't worry, your friend is still here. Bati walked in front of him, just slowly walked in front of him, and his tall figure rushed over like a flood that broke the dam, suppressing Lex Luthor to the point of being unable to breathe. He was trembling with cold sweat, and when he saw the tip of Bati's shoes appear in his sight, his body trembled even more. Waves of fear surged into his heart with sweat, making him gasp for air and dare not raise his head. Bati patted Lex Luthor's shoulder, which scared him. Do you think I only have a little brute force, and I have nowhere to use it in the face of the ever-changing high technology? So I want to leave a way out. I want to take advantage of my family and seek development in the metropolis. Lex Luthor pursed his lips tightly, and the fear in his eyes still supported him. He was smart enough and thought so. Flesh and blood can't compare with the future high technology. He has a far-sighted vision and wisdom to see the future development. Bati suddenly pushed his back gently and said with a smile, go back and pack up. Today we will go to the central city of Metropolis. From now on, you will be a member of Bamulodi. Lex Luthor nodded, trembling, and walked out of the room, breathing heavily and smiling bitterly. His wisdom had no place for bravery. It was stripped away bit by bit. His body was still scared to death and trembling. Until now, it was still trembling. He walked out of the luxurious building with a bitter smile. When the sun shone on him, he looked up at the sun. The sun pierced down, and his eyes were slightly painful. He recovered from discouragement and fear, and took a step. Regardless of fear or trembling, from today on, he is no longer a member of the suicide slum. I walk out of here. Bati saw Lex Luthor leave from the balcony of the French window. When he saw him leave the building, he straightened his back and left here. Lex Luthor, don't let me down. I look forward to the moment when you betray me. Bati smiled and called Mike over. I will leave the suicide slums within today. I leave this place to you. Take your men to defeat the Gambino Mafia. Don't cooperate. Eat away at their territory as quickly as possible. I will go to the Metropolis and the International Gang and organize 100 talks to see if they will surrender. Don't worry about the family. I'll take care of it. Recruit some mercenaries to guard the suicide slums. Chapter 75 Metropolis. Metropolis. This is a real metropolis, with colorful flowers, tall buildings, busy streets, and crowds of people coming and going like a tide. The atmosphere of the lively crowd warms up the entire metropolis. This is a real city, lively, energetic, and a top international city. Even begging here is better than the suicide slum. Of course, there are no beggars here. There are only violins, guitars, or saxophones on the roadside, and empty music boxes in front of them. Street performances generally add a landscape to the city. This is a city with a rich atmosphere of art and technology. The people here are civilized, polite and attractive, and everyone is a talent. They speak confidently and nicely. I really like this place. Bati stood by the window, looking at the flow of people in the metropolis below, and suddenly thought funny in his heart, feeling a little interesting. This place is different from the city of Gotham. Gotham is dark and gloomy, while the metropolis is bright and glorious, almost two extremes. It seems that the whole world is struggling between justice and evil, light and darkness, order and chaos. Bati narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance at the blue sky. Behind him, Lex Luthor was negotiating with a fat man with a ruddy face. who looked very wealthy and a little swollen due to sex, about the purchase of Bio Research. Yesterday, Badi had brought Lex Luthor to the central city of Metropolis, which was quite far away from the suicide slums and the dirty and messy place. Every place here was clean and showed the atmosphere of civilization, order, and art. The lively and energetic atmosphere made Lex Luthor very excited. A 13-year-old boy suddenly saw a new world and escaped from that hell, which made him feel deeply excited and fascinated. They stayed in a Galaxy 5-star hotel. The hotel was tall and erect, the most gorgeous building nearby. The two of them looked down at the entire city from a high place. Lex Luthor was so excited that he trembled. Looking at the blurred rainbow night, the endless stream of car lights, and the river of starlight, his eyes flashed with ambition. This is where people should live. Badi watched the whole time, looking at Lex Luthor's excited face, suppressing his trembling body with excitement, his eyes emitting a heroic light. It was the light of ambition, which was good. Badi's mouth curved. Lex Luthor stared at the fat man Noi opposite him. The steak dinner in front of him was not attractive at all. In fact, he had never eaten such an expensive meal. This was the task Badi gave him, to conduct a business negotiation. Since last night, Badi gave him some information he could find, and let him make a decision. He dared not slow down. He read the information for a whole night. Although he was tired, adrenaline still supported his excitement and clear mind. He could not fail, could not go back to the suicide slum again, and would not allow himself to fail. And this business negotiation would affect his future in Badi's heart. He had to do his best to get the best future. Noi's greasy face looked quite dissatisfied. He cut a piece of steak and put it in his mouth. He chewed the steak silently and looked at Lex Luthor in front of him impatiently. This kid was sick. He kept staring at him and made him shudder. He turned to Badi, who was standing by the window, and said, "Mr. Badi, it seems that you have no sincerity to acquire Noi Biotechnology Company. How can a little kid negotiate?" Badi was still standing in front of the window. The sunlight stretched his shadow very long. He closed his eyes and raised his head to enjoy it. He said, "The child in front of you represents my meaning. Whether he buys it at a price higher than my psychological price or a price lower than my psychological price, it's fine." Noi's eyes suddenly became greedy, and he was very satisfied with Badi's words. A little kid, isn't it easy to deal with? He gently touched the corner of his mouth with a white napkin, forced a smile, and looked at Lex Luthor with greedy eyes. Lex Luthor was still staring at him. "If that's the case, then let's do it as we said. 12 million, ahem. 15 million US dollars. This price is already very cheap. After all, Noi Biotechnology is a leading biotechnology company." Noi forced a smile on his face and said amiably, "It is a leading biotechnology company, but that was 15 years ago. Now it is on the verge of bankruptcy and can't even pay wages." Lex Luthor said. Noi's amiable smile paused. "This kid is really naughty. What a big truth. How can this be? Although the company's profits are a little less than before, it is still not seriously damaged." Noi said. His face was a little unnatural. In fact, it was more than a little less. It was already a loss of negative assets. $8 million. Lex Luthor's eyes were firm, and he gave a price. He had secretly visited Noi Biotechnology during the day and collected Noi's personal information. Fortunately, Noi was a showy guy, so he collected a lot of key information from newspapers and magazines, and deduced that this guy was on the verge of despair. It was abnormal for a person who liked to be in the news and magazines, a showy person, not to wear any jewelry or watches. It was estimated that some things had been sold by him, which meant that he was in a difficult situation now. Lex Luthor thought about why Badi needed this company, but he didn't come up with anything. But it didn't stop him from trying his best to lower the price and win his own future. How can a child negotiate like this? Noi was anxious. The price was so high that it was really unacceptable. Your company still owes the bank and employees wages, a total of 7 million US dollars. Taking over this company means paying for your debts from the beginning. Lex Luthor's eyes were already aggressive, and he continued, "As long as Mr. Noi fills the hole in the company, we don't mind acquiring Noi Biotechnology Company for 15 million. Noi's lips were trembling. How could he have any money now? The equipment there is worth Noy was interrupted by Lex Luthor before he could finish his words. The most valuable genome sequences, biological safety cabinets, and transgenic electrophoresis equipment have been sold by you to pay off your debts, Lex Luthor said. Noy stared and was shocked. How do you know? It was just speculation, but now it's confirmed, Lex Luthor said. Noy's face was extremely ugly. He was originally an uneducated guy. He gradually squandered the family business left by his father in more than 10 years. Recently, he got involved in gambling. He had no choice but to sell the company to clear his gambling debts. Lex Luthor's words touched his heart. After a confrontation, under the strong power of Lex Luthor, Noy was led by the nose. With Lex Luthor's kindness, reluctance and persuasion, the deal was completed at $9.5 million. Noy finally breathed a sigh of relief, and his debt was finally settled. After the discussion, Noy had a very good impression of Lex Luthor and expressed his desire to become friends with Lex Luthor. Badi looked out the window and took a sip of vodka with a faint smile. Lex Luthor is indeed a smart guy, not bad. Organization 100 headquarters, a luxurious nightclub. Gangs in this era always like to use nightclubs as their headquarters, but nightclubs are also high-end places, greeting the rich and nobles who come and go, providing them with unexpected happiness and enjoyment. The head of the Wheeler family, Doug Wheeler, received an invitation today. The Bamulodi from the Suicide Slum invited him to dine at the Galaxy Hotel at 7 o'clock tomorrow night to discuss the distribution of this metropolis. His son was beside him, a black man with a huge body. His hands and feet and body were as big and heavy as 2 or 3 people, like a mountain. His face was rough, but his skin was white, so pale that it made people feel horrified, like a huge corpse, a dead fish. It was not a cuckold plot, but Tobias Wheeler was a black man with albinism, born different from ordinary people, and even had more powerful strength than ordinary people. To ordinary people, he was a supernatural person with powerful strength. Father, shall we go? I heard that the boss of Bamulodi has an invulnerable body and powerful strength. He can jump more than 40 meters and kick a helicopter to pieces. Tobias Wheeler said with a terrifying and fierce light in his eyes. It's just to create a god. Doug Wheeler said contemptuously, but he destroyed our territory in the suicide slums, so we can't let him go. He has no right to grab food in the metropolis. Not going? Father. Tobias Wheeler's face darkened. Ignore it. Doug Wheeler threw the invitation directly into the trash can. Tobias Wheeler's breathing suddenly shrank, and his pale big hand suddenly spread to his father's neck. In his father's horrified eyes, he twisted Doug Wheeler's neck with force. Father, you are behind, and don't know what power means. It's a pity. I have seen it. Tobias Wheeler picked up the invitation from the trash can with a burning look. In a villa, Moses Manheim, the boss of the international gang, squinted his eyes and looked at the invitation sent by Badi. He had sent assassins to assassinate Badi several times, but they all fell into the sea and there was no news. This Bamulodi is strange. It is said that he has powerful power and bullets cannot penetrate his body. Finally, he decided to send his son to the banquet. Family meeting. A long dark red rectangular table. Each seat was occupied by nobles, upper class people, and wealthy people. Those with less than $100 million in assets were not qualified to enter here. If reporters could come in here, they would be surprised to find that everyone here had been on the cover of Metropolitan magazine, representing the elites of an industry, or even leaders. There was a lot of discussion here. Has the suicide slum not restored to order yet? My antiques still need to be transported here. The smuggled goods need to be connected. We need to clean up that place. The suicide slum must not have order. Put pressure on the police station and the government, and let them send out troops to deal with these criminals. The killer organization has refunded the money. They lost 5 elite killers, and are unable to kill the leader of Bamulodi. It's useless. You still call yourself a killer? The black man sitting in the first seat was Adder Edge, the head of the banking group, and also the head of this place. He tapped the table lightly, and the place suddenly became quiet. We are not a gang, and that place is just our playground. Don't take it too seriously. Since too much attention is focused there, let's not take any noticeable action, lest we get hurt there. These worms are not worth our trouble. I will ask the Assassins League to kill the gang leader and just give the worms a warning so that chaos will slowly return there. Everyone nodded and decided to be patient. After all, they were all upper class people and it was not worth bothering with the worms below. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.